Hello.
Have you just spotted what I've just spotted?
Yes. Oh, brilliant. I can't wait to get our guest on tonight.
I don't know how I feel. I don't know if I'm slightly concerned or slightly aroused. I think it's a mixture of the both.
I mean, at least he's kept his t-shirt on.
Yeah, well, we don't know what's happening. Yeah, we shouldn't. We're going to let everybody just see in a second what we can see.
Yeah.
It's definitely a Blether first. It's my 2-year anniversary, so I really feel like this is actually the perfect gift for my 2-year anniversary.
Yeah. Maybe he'll sing happy birthday to you.
Do you know what? I probably had dreamed a little bit like that before, so maybe let's see if we can make that happen.
Oh dear. Good evening, everybody. Welcome along to another Blether with. Great to see the chat is already going well. Good evening, Dave, Bob, Frank. Who else have we got in tonight? We've got Dutch Jura watching all the YouTubers joining us tonight. Dave, still off the alcohol. He's having a tin of Cherry Aid.
Nice.
Cherry Aid is a drink I haven't had in such a long time.
Yeah, probably for good reason.
You're not a fan of fizzy juice?
Not really, but I love Dave's creations when he starts adding those things to like gin and stuff and creates the most amazing cocktails that we didn't know we needed in our life until he created it.
Does he do cocktails or do he just add fizzy juice to gin?
Highball. So he just exclusively highball.
I'm not sure if gin and coke can class as a cocktail.
No, maybe not. Yeah, we've got everyone's on it on YouTube. You guys are so fast on YouTube. It must be like a little group of you that's just like who can get in fastest on a Thursday night.
Bob is finishing off some wine before starting some drams.
Nice.
I like it. Mixing the grape and the grain.
You'll be starting fights for the end of the night.
Good evening, Ryan. Thank you for joining us. Good evening, Tim. We are well, I think. All things considered. Looking forward to another chat tonight, even more so now that I've seen what's joining us on the green screen. You might have it all eaten by the time we get it.
There's so many questions like, did he already have it? Did he go out just for it? Has he worn it all day? Like, I've just got a lot of questions.
Did he bought it from Gregor?
I like that's where your mind went.
Yeah.
You should probably get him on. Oh, right, yeah, sorry. I just got so distracted. I'm going to go on brand, but I didn't know which one to go for, so hang on. And one of these is open and one of them's not open, so I might go for the open one. So I got the Lady of the... My lighting is so shit. It just looks like a white box. Lady of the Glen, it was from the Fife Whisky Festival that you didn't go to, Mike, that I went to. So I've got that one. It's really sweet. Like, it's mental. It's like pudding. And then, because I'm an Ardmore whore, I've got my Lady of the Glen Ardmore, because I was at a tasting the other night, which they had this as their bonus dram at the end, and it was a bit of a favourite for the night, so I've got...
Was that the 2014 Oloroso?
Yes, it is.
No, I will join you in that. I've got a dram of that as well.
My one's not open, so I'm just going to wait till you're... Yeah, I'm going to wait till you're really distracted by balls.
We'll see you in about half an hour.
I know. But yeah, I'll give you a sample of the...
a wee Ben Rinnis, which is a first full bourbon.
Oh, nice. I was going to say I'll send you a sample of the Lady of the Glen one. I'll give it to you on Saturday. I mean, of the Fife Whisky Festival one. I'll take you some. Lovely. Check you with your fancy glass.
So is that a festival exclusive, was it?
It was, yeah. Yep. Super exclusive. That's very nice. Yeah, you kind of pause there.
A wee bit of a lag.
I think you do. You're kind of blotting out a little bit.
Hopefully it picks up, but we will take Paul. We will say hello.
Mike, your internet's shit.
I didn't get the super duper upgrade that you got.
I'll let you get Paul in, and you're like 5 minutes.
We'll get Paul in, we'll have a wee giggle, and then I am going to reset my internet. Let's bring him in. Hello! Love it.
That is impressive. Very nice. I'm like disappointed you went with the t-shirt though. Like you kind of gone like full bikini look.
If we're still here after 9, then we'll see. Still kind of before Watershed, so I thought, don't know who's watching.
Well, that's a good point, actually. So is it like a full set you've got on, or are you just going top half only?
I think you just need to use your imagination for that.
I really am.
Let's just say, if I'm shifting about a bit much, then you can imagine how uncomfortable the other half might be. Keep it up the promises from last week. So I didn't want to let anyone.
You did.
You really did. You did, definitely. That is quite the look. Is that why you were so late coming on? Just because you were getting dressed into your Candy 2 set?
I was, yeah. That there's nothing to do with trying to get the right browser on my laptop. No, just totally sorting out the wardrobe. Priorities, of course, But
I think the people who didn't see last week, they're all asking why. Why?
Yeah, Bob has just said just one question: why?
Well, you can fill them in then.
I can't remember how we got on to edible underwear last week. It was
it went back 2 weeks ago. Actually, is when we started, and it was to do with I'd came out with the fact that the guys who discovered it or who invented it in a drunken haze, and we're talking about good ideas that come from when you're drunk, and they were discussing the Puff the Magic Dragon song that had the line "Eat My Shorts" in it, which is famous now because of The Simpsons. And they were discussing that, and because of that, they invented what they called candy pants, which is edible underwear. So we were discussing that, and I think Mark Watt mentioned on the chat something about tasting notes for edible underwear.
That's what it was.
And so Paul kindly last week offered to wear his edible underwear this week for part of the show. So
and
that's the short version.
For the full show,
Nobody said anything about not bringing snacks, so that's part of the thinking.
That's a good 100%. Point. It's like, I hope you've paired your whiskey to your bra.
How good a tasting evening would that be, Paul? If you came up and did a shop tasting and matched your edible underwear with your whiskies, and people got to eat a bit off you.
Just come and lick the brand ambassador. That'd be some night.
So my experience of the Blethers before, the ones I've been on, the ones I've watched, usually start quite sensible, talking about whiskey, nice humble beginnings, and then it gets a bit crazy. So maybe we'll consider this switching it around. I'll just get this bit out of the way. But talking about edible tastings, let's see some suggestions. Actually, that would be and then you make promises, you get the ball rolling, and you can't get it out your head. So
100%.
This is it, yeah.
There might have to be some disclaimers signed prior to that one going ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's been done, or I don't think it's been advertised that it's been done. So maybe we're on to it first ever edible underwear whiskey pairing.
Eat the brand ambassador.
Eat the brand. Yeah, let's go for that. Let's get that set up. Sounds like a good plan. There's a lot. I mean, to be fair though, a whole bikini set's a bit too much to go in one, to eat in one go. That'd be a lot of whiskey. It wouldn't be responsible. You'd probably just have to go for top half or bottom. You couldn't do both.
Mm-hmm. Depends how many people are tasting though, I suppose.
I guess
you might need both to get everyone a taste.
Do you know, there's a lot of things to work out. We'll put a pin in it, and we'll come back and iron out the details later.
Yeah, we'll have a couple of drams. We'll do some sensible chat, and then we'll come back and see what happens. I love Major Nut has put in a wee comment there. Let's see who or what Hannah Whiskey Merchants is Never heard about them. This is Hannah Whisky Merchants. This is what you've got.
I'm still out on day release as well. This is just part of the shenanigans that gets on during day release. Hopefully Gregor's not watching. Actually, this is afterthoughts.
Well, do you know, it's a good point as well. I can tell you don't work for a big multinational company because there's no way I'd be allowed on the Blether in a candy bra set. So there you go.
Because down the line of forgiveness is better than permission. We'll leave it at that. So
yeah,
we'll cross that bridge on Monday.
Yeah, Monday's a long way away. You're fine.
Yeah.
Monday morning, first day, Gregor's like, let's talk.
Well, what's in your glass tonight, Paul?
So, well, I should say that I'm down at my dad's house now. He might even be watching as well, and he'll be freaking out because he'll be seeing that I'm getting stuck into all his whiskey behind me.
In a bra.
Yeah, well, he says
the dad knows where that is quick.
And he's got much better whiskies in the cabinet than I've got in mine. So I'm finding all the excuses in the world to come down here. But no, while I was raking about, and that's the real reason I was late, because I was raking about to see what I could find at the back. I was just pulling out some bottles from, assuming they're going to be talking about me and my story with whiskey. So I pulled out little bottles of the periods of whiskey in my life and what
nice.
The jobs I've had and bottles that I've encountered that if they were in my house, they would have been demolished years ago. But down here, it's just like an archive because my dad loves his whiskey as well. But God bless him, he only drinks when I'm down with him as well. So these bottles kind of tend to hang around. So I'm going to start with this. So first proper job was at a whiskey shop, and their own brand was Glen Treasures, and managed to find this 17-year-old Springbank at the back of the shelves in the shop, and we staff discount later. It was coming home with me, so I'm going to start with that.
Nice. I can almost hear your dad running back. The fact that you raked it out from the back of the cupboard.
Yeah. How long does it take to get from Stonehaven back to Cumbernauld? I think I've got time.
It's downhill, so it's everything that goes south is downhill, right? So you'll get there pretty quick. So you were talking about being on day release. I've seen on your Facebook that you've been off traveling all around about the place today. It looks like you've had an exciting day. Do you want to tell us about your day first and then tell us about your job? Because it will link into what you actually do and who you are.
Yeah. I was stealing a wage today. Having the wonderful pleasure of being able to drive up in the countryside and collect a cask on such a spectacular day is one of the many, many parts of my job that I've got. Obviously, many times at whisky festivals with my brand ambassador hat on, but also, up and down the country picking up casks as well. And that was one of the days today. So yeah, pretty busy day, running up to Ben Nevis distillery, picking up a cask that we are very excited to put into our new release. Big fan of Ben Nevis. So, that kind of helps as well. Trying to keep the lid on my whiskey geek. When I go to these distilleries and I'm talking to all the warehouse guys and trying to be all serious, and things like that. Sneaking my phone out to take pictures of the still house, and so yeah, it's an absolute privilege to be able to call that work. So
I think it's important to keep that side of the enjoyment as well. You can't make it all business. You have to have that little inner geek and little fanboy moments as well to keeps it excited, isn't it? It keeps it fun.
Yeah.
If you get too involved in the business side of it, then it can be quite repetitive, mundane style of business, can it?
Yeah. Variety is spice of life, so they say. So I'm certainly blessed with that in the role. And I suppose thinking about it on the way up to Fort William today, it's almost kind of full circle that the first proper job that I had within whisky was with David Sturck at Creative Whisky. And I think it was a few weeks into the role that he handed me the keys to the van and said, "Oh, we've got to pick up a cask at Ben Nevis. You want to go and get it?" Absolutely terrified at the thought of having that responsibility of driving, confident driver as I am, but driving a 1996 first fill sherry butt back to the warehouse all the way down in Thornhill. So that was my first ever venture into the idea of collecting whiskey from a distillery, and I've been a few times since, but you know, to be here just now talking about the fact that I was there today is quite nice to go back and do that.
So how long ago was that you were working with David?
So that would have been 2015. So it was about May or June 2015, and I remember, you know, getting back to the warehouse. Like it must have been about 8 o'clock at night. I was driving so slow, 30 mile an hour, all the way down with this prize baby in the back, and thought I'd kind of passed all the tests. And then David phoned me and said, "Are you back yet?" I was like, "Yeah, back now." It's like, right, going to crack that cask open, pour a glass, and tell me what you think about it, because our US importer's waiting to hear if it's good enough to bottle. So, you know, absolute pressure. You know, yes or no, simple answer. How do you answer yes or no to such an important decision like that?
Yeah.
Decisions that I make, you know, we make every day, every week now. But as a fresh-faced whiskey geek at the time, it was quite an honour, but quite terrifying at the same time. So
that is a lot of pressure. Like, so what's like your first thing you kind of look for when you're making that decision, when you kind of open it up?
Is it nice? would I buy it? You know, it's all these questions. But no, I mean, I suppose he wasn't asking me for a sensory evaluation. Just to cut straight to the point, I think he sort of pre-sold it as a sherry cask. So the idea is, please make it look like a sherry cask and taste like a sherry cask, and not some Peely Valley refill number. So that was certainly passed the test. So
excellent. I remember the first, so pre-lockdown, we were in discussion with another two independent shops about coming together and creating an independent brand between the three of us, and then every cask we would buy would be released between the three shops. And we got offered, it was through AD Rattray, and it was an absolute banging Mortlach, I think 10 years old, maybe 9 years old, in a refill sherry, but it was so pale. It was like this Ben Rinnes in a bourbon cask, and we all loved the flavour, but we had to make the decision to say no, because we didn't want that to be our first bottle. Just as you say, it doesn't look like a sherry cask. If we put this out as a first, you know, nobody had heard of the brand. It was going to be a debut whiskey. So we went for a Glen Murray we'd picked instead, which was, you know, it wasn't like Coca-Cola, but it was a bit darker. We had more confidence, or we thought people would have more confidence in that. So I guess you do have that kind of thoughts going in mind. Unfortunately, COVID kind of put the whole thing up the spout, so we never got around to doing that. But yeah, you have to be conscious of, well, if you're buying for a private customer as well, what they think of, you know, what their preconceptions of a sherry cask or an old whiskey or whatever it is are.
Yeah, it's these decisions, I suppose, that we have to make, and you can call it heart or head, you know, or you can say, well, is it for me or is it from a commercial side? You're thinking of selling bottles in the shop, and you want to sell them, you want them to go, but you also then want the people who enjoy that at home to understand, you know, maybe they won't understand that it's not all sherry casks are as dark as mud.
Yeah.
You know, we have that sort of decision every day as well, and well, every time we're coming up to put an outrun out, where, you know, certainly myself and Gregor to a certain extent as well is very much in a kind of purist's vein just now of what we appreciate within whiskey. You know, more kind of bourbon casks and refill, just allowing that spirit to shine, and we have that dilemma where, you know, yes, it's fantastic, it's really good, we like it, that's the most important thing, but at the same time we have to then go and sell those 250 bottles or whatever it may be. But beyond that, then our customers then have to sell those bottles with, you know, sharing that love as well. So heart and head is a good analogy, but it's true.
100%.
Yeah.
And a large part of the customer base isn't as geeky as guys like us, guys who are watching tonight. A lot of them buy with their eyes. They want to, you know, what looks good, and if it's a gift, they want something that's going to give that perception of quality. And unfortunately, that for a lot of people is darkness, isn't it? It's a dark color whiskey is perceived as quality. So, but it just means there's great light colored whiskey for for us who want to indulge in that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, having said that, I prefer that kind of refill bourbon style. You are automatically drawn to colour. Again, in the warehouse the other day, we were just trying some casks and opened a cask of Linkwood, a 20 port cask, just to have a look at it. And this thing came out of the lunch like Ribena. And the whole excitement of that, seeing that happen. But I think that's more down to the fact that there's an investment in the cask, re-racking that cask into the 20 port cask and then seeing, the proverbial fruits quite literally coming out into the glass. And knowing fine well that if that goes into glass, then it's going to sell half the time if we hadn't re-racked it at all. But then that's fine if that's your thing, that really full-on intense flavour, which comes and goes. Winter time in front of the fire, that's the kind of drama I want. Hot summer's day like this. Well, okay, I'll stop it. It's not quite hot, but warm, sunny days call for nice fresh whiskey. So
that's like, it's not typical for a brand ambassador, though. Really, is it to get to do a lot of what you're doing, like it's cask selection and going to pick up casks and stuff, like, or is it? I mean, I haven't heard a lot of brand ambassadors talking about that we've had on anyway.
No, I suppose not. I mean, most people know me as brand ambassador because, well, that's where they see me. But also says that on my business card. But I mean, really is just about a quarter of what I do. So yeah, I would say you're right. But brand ambassador is what it says on my business card. But at the end of the day, making the tea, sweeping the floor, cracking the whip is all part of the fun of the daily chores.
What's Dean Joad's amazing job title? We maybe need to get your new branding. What is he like? Mike, what's he like?
Master of Flavour Creation or Head of Flavour Creation or something like that.
Something like that. Let's get you rebranded and get you a new business card. Get some crowdfunding together. Get you some new business cards. You could be Master of Flavour.
It is quite clever. I worked with Dean for 18 months, and I'm just trying to remember what it said on my business card. I think I had the lowly title of Whisky Creations Team. So there was no heads or leader of or anything.
Yeah. Well, we'll get you.
Still pretty cool to be a whiskey creator rather than a brand ambassador, though, right?
Yeah. It certainly freshened it up a little bit as well, and it poses questions, from customers. Oh, what is that you doing? Well, let me get you started. Grab a glass, sit down. Yeah,
I know, because I think you are one of the busiest people in the industry. I see you at every single festival. But like, you're doing so much behind the scenes as well. Like literally, you're setting off first thing in the morning, go pick up a cask, buy a bra, and then appear on a live chat. Like you put the miles in. What did your week look like an average week?
Yeah, I remember you closing the Blether last week saying that I was one of the hardest working people in the industry, and I just about spat my drama all over the screen. It was never have I heard myself referred to as a hard worker before, and I'll be honest with you.
I'll get back.
It's peaks and troughs. It really is peaks and troughs. Basically up until this week, I was fairly quiet. Say brand ambassador sales is my main role. So out with whiskey festival season, whiskey tastings, and then as long as I've got whiskey to sell, I'll be busy. But there's always that little month before we bottle the new release or the preparation of putting together the new release where I will be quite quiet, working from home, for example, is often a daily makes up many days of the week. But then there's weeks like this where, I'm out on the road twice and in the warehouse doing some sampling, and then as soon as that whiskey's bottled, it'll be all go to sell it. So I'm not going to answer what a typical week is, because I don't even know what that would look like, to be honest. But that's the thing. We are such a small team, and that's where that diversity of roles comes from, because as a small team, we are all chipping in and doing many different things as and when the business needs whatever role, job it needs that week.
That's nice to have that variety.
Absolutely. Major Nut does know you, but he knows the Lady of the Glen brand. He's just put a wee comment on there. And I guess that's, we've kind of advertised you as coming from Hannah Whisky Merchants, which is the kind of overseeing company, and then you've got your brands within that. Probably the most known is Lady of the Glen. But what else is in the portfolio? If you can tell us about that for the guys at home.
Yeah, so I have no problem with Lady of the Glen. That is what most people know is by Lady of the Glen, and that's mainly because that has been since day one of the business when Gregor founded the business back in 2012. Classic independent bottler. So found the business. Hannah Whisky Merchants is the name of the business, and then within that you've got to create a brand for the vehicle for bottling the whiskies. And he founded Lady of the Glen back then, and right up until pretty much 2022, that was the only brand. So effectively 10 years of the business. So that's why it's okay, and most people do know is by Lady of the Glen, and even today we have the 3 brands in the portfolio, but Lady of the Glen is the priority. Everything else kind of works around that. The other 2 brands being Dalgety, which is our small batch brand, which we spent weeks and weeks trying to come up with the name of that, considering we're based in Dalgety Bay. That used the absolute limit of our imagination. We got there, Just looked out the window one day and thought, this place is quite nice, let's just stick it on the label, simple as that. And we've got St. Bridget's Kirk as well, which is also named after a kind of local landmark, a little medieval ruined church down on the waterfront down in Dalgety Bay. But that's for our blends. So we've got, at the moment, I say at the moment because it was only meant to start out as a blended malt brand, and then we acquired some blended Scotch casks, and then we come up with our Creative Solera system, which we'll talk about later on. So we have 3 different varieties of St. Bridget's Kirk, which really confuses everyone. And hopefully as time goes on, they'll become a bit more established, and we can kind of create a bit of momentum with those fantastic whiskies. So, but yeah, that's our family of whiskies.
The St. Bridget's Kirk is really coming on. It's such a good dram. We've got Major Nut at home. He said he bought a St. Bridget's Kirk batch 1 not too long ago. They're still out in the wild.
Yeah, again, batch 1 of what? Because of the 3. So that, I think back to the very first one, the blended malt, which was let's say 3 years ago that came out. So if it was one of them, if it was the Solera, the batch 1, I think that was more recently, just about a year ago, maybe 15, 16 months ago. We're on to batch 4 of that now. So yeah, there's probably bottles kicking about in the wild. So, and of course, batch 1 of anything is collectible, very highly collectible. Stick it on a shelf and let it get dusty.
I almost believe you there, but yeah. So you explained all the names except for Lady of the Glen. Where does that come from?
Yeah, well, I think usually let Gregor explain this as his story is tied to his connection, his past. But as I understand it, it's a bit like Chinese whispers. Every time I tell the story, it probably changes just a little bit each time, to the point where 5 years into the role now, it's probably there's no fact in it at all. But I'll give it a go. So even if I just refer back to the new brands that we have just now, tied into us, where we are, who we are, and what we do. Way back in 2012, Gregor still had that vision of wanting to keep the brand connected to him. And it goes back to, he says, one of his most favourite times in his life was when he was studying at Stirling University, and he was living in Stirling, and he was kind of fascinated by all the ghosts in the castle. One of the most commonly seen ghosts in that castle, and I think probably plenty of other castles, is the Green Lady. So he was kind of inspired by that, but quickly realised that the word green, when associated with whiskey, is a kind of negative. I think young, it's like an old warehouseman's way, oh, Shuggy, go in and check that cask for me. Oh, it's a bit green still. I take to be, it's not ready yet. So that sort of evolved from that into Lady of the Glen. So that's the story as I know it.
I didn't know it was named after a ghost. Why are all the ladies green? Like, what is the deal with that? Like, I thought ghosts were like see-through. Did they all have like really heavy kind of spinach-based diets before they died? Like, why are they green?
I just think there is a few movies where the ghosts are kind of a green.
Yeah.
Green,
but do they not normally stay in green rooms? Like the rooms are painted green, so that's why they become the green lady.
See through the green paint.
Maybe they're easier to see. Maybe the owner of the castle or whatever think, you know what, nobody's seeing this ghost, so if I paint the walls green, then
you'll be able to
she'll
see
appear.
it.
Yeah. We've all seen Ghostbusters. Maybe that's just you see
Flavour.
Ghostbusters, and you know that's
like,
what ghosts look like.
The classic green ghost, isn't he?
Yeah, I don't know if I've seen Ghostbusters, but
I think some of these 15th century ghosts were green long before Smiler came on the go, though.
Maybe we need to get a ghost expert on the chat. Last week we were talking about brains. This week it's ghosts. So yeah, maybe we just need an expert on every single week. Well, that's interesting. So we covered. Go on then.
I was going to say we're not going to talk about aliens this week. So.
Oh, don't even get me started on how much I hate aliens.
Ghosts and green ladies. Alan Smith say maybe they're like pink elephants.
Maybe, but I don't think anybody's actually like talking about seeing pink elephants in castles that often. But
not
yeah,
a castle, no.
Who knows? Maybe everyone's got a healthy dose of synesthesia and you all see ghosts in different colours. There we go. Rounded off that chat nicely.
Yeah. Nice segue into my next question for Paul. It wasn't going to be my next question, but it can be. When you're nosing a cask, Paul, do you see colours or do you sense flavours?
No, but I am absolutely fascinated by that. Again, speaking to Mark and Kate about that when they launched the brand, I've never heard of it before. Immediately then grabbed a glass and stuck my nose in it and tried to see if I could do that as well. But no, I'm just normal. No offense.
I think normal. That's quite a general term there.
No. I mean that in a negative way because I'm hopeless at tasting notes as well, and it's not because I think you should have a really well developed, well educated nose or palate. It's just a case of putting these sensory evaluations into words. Mm-hmm. And we do tasting notes all the time, and if you look at them, they just repeat. At the end of the day, I'm trying to think of new things that's not vanilla, not honey, not seashells. Yeah. But so that's I think where the fascination comes from. That I want to know more because that sounds to me like a whole new way of describing whiskey. And I know you spoke before about comparing whiskey to music and things like that as well. So that just opens up. I'm not quite at the point of saying that. We do a tasting, we describe whiskies and tasting notes. It's getting a bit old, kind of fuddy-duddy, but there is a lot of things that do repeat, and I'm so grateful that whiskey's not quite got there yet. You do. There's a lot of interpretation with tasting notes in whiskey, and one's interpretation is not frowned upon. I think that's the problem with wine. I've been to one wine tasting in my life, so I can't say I'm an expert at this or anything, but the experience that I took away was that it was more about the presenter telling you what you can get in your wine, what you should taste, what you should smell, how you should feel after it. Whereas as long as whiskey doesn't go down that road, it's all interpretation. And you'll be in a room and you'll say this whiskey is matured in a bourbon cask, so you should get notes of vanilla, honey, coconut. And someone who's completely new to whiskey at the back, if they're bold enough, will put up their hand and say, yeah, bananas. I'm getting bananas. And that is great. Absolutely fantastic. Yeah. I'm not getting bananas, but thank you so much for contributing that because
it can be such a fun part of the experience, isn't it? When you get a room or a couple of people who are so descriptive with it and are able to bring a note, because all you need is one person to come out with a couple of notes and you can see the domino effect. Other people are like, oh, well, now that he's mentioned that, I do get a bit, but, maybe I get a little bit, instead of bananas, I get foam bananas like the sweeties or banana milkshake, and that evolves and you can have that discussion. I think it's tough if you've probably been in the tastings yourself when you try not to give tasting notes to the extent and see what the customer gets, and everyone's just silent. Nobody wants to say a word. I always try to say to people, right, if you're in a room and somebody mentions it's in a bourbon cask, go and just shout vanilla, because that will get the ball rolling and everyone will pick up vanilla in a bourbon cask. So, be that guy to stand up and say, I'm getting a bit of vanilla or caramel. And it's a great way just to set the tone. And probably the host will never pick on you again because you've said that right to start. You can move on.
Yeah.
But, I mean, tasting notes are such a fascinating part of the whole industry. People swear by them. People, hang off the words of certain bloggers or vloggers on what they say and say, I love what they're talking about this whiskey. I need to get that whiskey. Other, guys like Alistair Walker never puts tasting notes on a bottle. It's kind of really staunchly against it. It's such a great topic to talk about, especially with people in the industry, but equally people out of the industry as well. When you're trying to describe a whiskey, how do you do that without tasting notes? It's such a hard thing to do.
Yeah, I'm okay with both sides of putting tasting notes on labels and not doing it at all. We do just like 3 almost bullet points as just a general guide, and I always like to describe that as being, well, if you've got the whiskey in front of you, then just ignore that, because that's there for the unfortunate folk who don't have the privilege of just trying before you buy. That's for those unfortunate ones looking on a shelf. But yeah, I still think they're important. I still think and I suppose it puts a little bit of your personality in there as well, especially if you are such a small team. But I think being very careful as well of what you do and what you suggest, because we are very suggestible, and there is that. I'm sure you've done that before as well. Like you said, it's great for getting the ball rolling, but if you're doing a tasting for 10 people who are completely new to whiskey, and they look absolutely baffled until you say the word vanilla, and then you get all that, oh yeah, very, very suggestible. So here's my thought to you, Kat. So do it your next tasting, present the first whiskey, and then say, who's all getting red from that? And just see what the reaction is. You getting a bit of orange in there as well, or maybe some blue, just to get the ball rolling on that. Just because there'll be, there's already yourself and Mark that I know of, so there must be, quite a few more out there. So you'll find them.
This is it, because I thought it was everybody when Mike first said, "Oh, there's this guy that's like releases his whiskey, and he does all his taste notes in colour." I was like, "Yeah, like, obviously." Until I realized like nobody else does that. So yeah, I've got a tasting Friday night, so maybe I'll just be like, "Yeah, so this one's yellow, guys. Enjoy." And I'll just sit down for a wee bit. Bit much easier for me.
A shout out to the guys watching at home. What are your thoughts on tasting notes, and how influential are they to your whiskey buying process? That'd be an
interesting question, actually, whether people actually buy based off tasting notes only. I only have so I do like tasting notes, and I can see maybe why some people wouldn't put them on as well, because you can over influence somebody. It's when there's too much of them, and it's the one thing that, like, if I'm training new staff, it's like the one thing that they don't like doing is talking about, like, describing the whiskey, because like they think they've got to be an expert. But I'm like, everybody's an expert on what they like, so you're like, just tell me what you can taste in it. But yeah, it's when there's like really too much information, and you like Googling the different words to see what they are, like tonka beans, or like, what is a tonka bean? Like, I don't know. Give me a kidney bean. I know what a kidney bean is. I don't want my whiskey to taste a kidney bean. We had to Google one once, and it was the resin that they soak violin strings in. I mean, that's a very elitist tasting note right there. Like,
I mean, only people who make violins will know what that smells like. I
know, right? And like, nobody's going to know what that is, and it's going to put you off a little bit if you don't know what it is. It's like walking into a fancy hairdresser's, and everybody looks like they've all just fallen out of like Prada, and you just want to go back out again. Like, it's just, you got to make it relatable, I think.
Yeah, Paul and I have got that issue.
Walking into fancy hairdressers.
Yeah. Again, I think I spat my drama out a couple of weeks ago when you said you'd been to the hairdressers, Mike, and then obviously you then said you were going for your shave. So that's fair enough. I don't even need to do that either. Couldn't have tried.
Oh, I was out about. I was getting very bushy. Around the face.
Getting your spring coat ready.
Shedding the winter coat, getting ready for the summer. Thank God I did, because it's been a cracking couple of days.
Sure is. I think it's to be like this for the next 4 or 5 days as well. So
nice.
Yeah. Somebody texted me earlier on from I think they were from Germany, and we were just talking about whiskey and bottlings, and I don't know why I said, how's the weather over there? Oh, it's a bit overcast. How's the weather at your end? So well, you won't know what I mean. And if anybody's tuned in who's not from the UK, I just replied, taps off. Especially from Scotland, that just sums up. You don't need to explain.
Yeah,
whether it's 3 degrees and sunny or 15 degrees and sunny. It's just
taps off.
First warm day, taps off.
You would have had really interesting tan lines if you were taps off in your.
I don't know if I've got tan lines yet. I'll need to. That might require some further investigation over the weekend. Can I take this off now? Because I just had a thought that we've explained all this, and then somebody might just be joining in right now and thinking, what is this?
So you're obviously not keeping up the chat, because I think it's Ryan who's maybe just explaining to everybody that keeps tuning in saying, what the fuck? So yeah, thanks Ryan for keeping up with that. But yeah, it's happening consistently. So you're forever going to be known as the brand ambassador in the bra. But
you're more than welcome. Yeah, you put the bra in brand ambassador.
Oh, well done.
I might actually have to eat it off. I cannot get this undone.
No boy wants to fail live on TV getting a bra off.
No. One hand.
I mean, to be fair, it's not normally on our back. It's normally on somebody else's.
That's a good point. Actually,
I'll stick up for Paul on that side of things.
Yeah, one hand. I wasn't looking either. I just couldn't see behind there. So yeah,
we're getting some great comments.
I don't remember really fruity tasting notes on this whiskey before. I was getting all these fruity aromas coming from somewhere, and
candied sweeties. We're getting some great comments on the tasting note comment question. So we've got Pete Head said he doesn't get influence at all, but then does write his own tasting notes down for himself. Doesn't care what others write down. Dave Fagerson does buy off tasting notes when he sees things like caramel and toffee. Tim Powell's has got a fact for you. Estimates are that 1 to 4% of people have some form of synesthesia. That's the one.
It's a difficult word.
That's the word. See, when you read it as it's written, it's different to when you say it off the top of your head. That's what tripped me up.
Yeah.
Go with it.
That's interesting. That's quite a lot of people then.
Yeah. Bob totally ignores the tasting notes as they seem to be a bit over the top these days. Yeah. Scott pretends he doesn't take too much notice, but does have triggers, smoky fudge, any mention of black forest or raspberries, and he's in.
See, I have that with white chocolate. As soon as it says white chocolate, I'm like, no, I hate white chocolate so much.
I suppose, I mean, I just said we don't put too much effort into tasting notes or don't take them too seriously, but it does cross your mind that someone might pick up a bottle based on the fact that they're drilling over what they're reading on that tasting note, and then might get something completely different when they get the whiskey in the glass at home. And that could be, it could still be a very enjoyable whiskey, but if your expectations are up here and then you get that, I think that then you've got to be quite careful with that.
Yeah. It's one thing I always say to people if they're in the shop or in a tasting or something is always bear in mind that the person writing those tasting notes wants you to buy their bottle, and no matter if that's as an independent bottler or a conglomerate, the idea of tasting notes are to sell. So they're not going to put, I like the way you guys do it. It's just 3 fairly broad strokes on an idea of the flavour. But the more intricate details you go into, the smaller the gap for margin I think there is, or you present. So if somebody buys that and tastes it in a different environment and don't get that, you kind of lose a little bit of trust in that bottler or that company to say, well, they've hoodwinked me once, not again. I'm not going to go back there.
Yeah, and there's also, if you get a tasting note that's a nice note within whiskey, or certainly part of that flavour experience with that whiskey, but that one note that if stood alone on a piece of paper on the label, whatever it may be, is not necessarily a desirable trait of whiskey. Yeah. And I'm immediately drawn back to, actually, it was 2 years ago, or last year, we'll say last year, we bottled a Blair Athol from just a refill wine cask, 10 years, fully matured and refill wine. And really fruity whiskey. But behind the fruit on the nose, there was a distinct Parmesan cheese note. And we all got it, all four of us. And even Gavin, who is new to whiskey, he's learning as he goes along in the warehouse. Yeah, he was like, "Yeah, I'll get Parmesan cheese, absolutely." I said, "That sounds absolutely disgusting. Who wants Parmesan cheese in their whiskey?" But it made that whiskey, that little bit of funk, just little salty edge with the fruit, wonderful. And so I think we spent about a week with working on the label, Parmesan cheese off, Parmesan cheese on, off, on. And it ended up we just left it on, but it went out there, and I was thinking, geez, somebody's going to pick that bottle up and think, what are they thinking? Bottling a whiskey that smells like Parmesan cheese. And yeah, I don't think I've ever had that before from a whiskey. It's so distinct, so distinct that four people from completely different backgrounds and different levels of knowledge and experience in whiskey all 100% got that note. So because of that, it had to go on the label.
You can get like sort of weird cheesy notes through from, is it like a longer fermentation? And it depends where you cut as well, isn't it? If you go down further into the faints, you start getting the cheesy stuff, or is it? I can't remember. I need a whiskey geek to help me out with this one. It does come through sometimes.
If you get me started talking about Bruichladdich, then I think that's where everything I get from Bruichladdich these days is all kind of lactic and baby sick and cheesy. So whatever they do, so ask them.
Okay.
Not having a go. I'm not having a go at Bruichladdich. If they want to sell us some casks, or MD wants to sell us a cask of Bruichladdich,
you'll happily drive over to Isla to pick it up as well.
Yes, any excuse. And there's 2 seats in the van as well, so
Just
yeah. You'll need a hand to roll that cask in.
Yeah.
This is it. And do you know what? I'm quite robust, so I can give you a hand with that. I'm small but mighty, so I'm free.
Absolutely sold. Yeah.
I once saw somebody describe Parmesan cheese as spaghetti confetti, and I think that is the best description of Parmesan cheese ever, because it is. It just makes every spaghetti bolognese better. Spaghetti confetti. So there you go.
We'll put that on the label next time, and it'll be like a secret code for you get the cheesy whiskey. Actually, just talking about tasting notes again, it reminds me of so obviously this journey within whiskey, a brand ambassador now, and can do a tasting in front of people, and hopefully they leave happy. But it does remind me again back to my my whiskey shop days, when I was kind of fresh faced and thrown in at the deep end doing tastings. That I was about an hour and a half into a tasting, 6 whiskies down, fairly kind of new, people new to whiskey, a few tourists in there as well. And I thought I was doing a great job. Everyone was smiling, everyone was nodding, everyone was finishing their whiskies, waiting for the next one with anticipation. And then I think it was after whiskey 5, and I just said, "Anyone get any questions so far?" And this guy put his hand up. I think he was American, and he said, "Yeah, really, really love the apples in this whiskey. Can you tell me at what point do they put the apples into the whiskey?" just I'm going home. I was so mortified, especially back then, because you just think you've done it all wrong. You've not explained the process, and you've got a bit too carried away with tasting notes. But nothing to do with it. The fact that this guy was 5 whiskies in and he'd been to the pub before and probably wasn't listening to me. But I will never forget that.
I've been asked that before as well, though. You talk like little bits of ginger or whatever, and like, oh yeah, so like at what point in the process do you add that in? You're like, no, we just did a whole tour about how we made this stuff. There was no section where the Oompa Loompas added the ginger in, but yeah, I can see how people can get confused, especially if they've had a few drinks. Yeah, it's easily done.
Yeah, definitely.
But like, completely, it's the public's fault. It's not our fault at all. So you started in a whiskey shop and worked your way up to brand ambassador. So like, what is the journey there? Because like, brand ambassador is like one of these jobs that everyone wants now. And I think it because it looks like quite a glamorous lifestyle on Instagram. You know, you're like jetting off here and there. But like, yeah, like how do you get from shop to brand ambassador? Or what's your journey anyway? I used the word journey so many times there. It's just such an ick word. What's your story?
Yeah, so my journey, there's another time. Have a dram every time you say it.
I haven't even poured one yet. I was just waiting for everybody to get distracted because I make such a mess of doing it. You carry on with your journey and I'll pour a dram.
Yeah, so I suppose, I mean, going from nothing to brand ambassador is quite a journey. It took a long time, right enough. I suppose right back to the start when, I've always been a whiskey drinker, even back in the early days of drinking. I could only handle 2 pints, and then I thought there was something wrong with me when my mates were all having 4 or 5, and it just simply was I was too bagged up. So quickly moved on to spirits and found a liking for whiskey without really caring too much about it, just being so proud that, as an 18-year-old that I could knock back a whiskey.
Yeah.
But it did start an appreciation for it. But for many years after that, just deciding that whiskey was something that I had a drink of and quite enjoyed. But it wasn't really until I think I went on holiday and went to a guest house, and the owner of the guest house welcomes you into the room, says, "Everything okay? Can I get you a wee dram?" And of course, being from where I'm from, you don't say no to a free whiskey. Had that dram, and it was the first time I ever took a glass of whiskey and said, actually, instead of making a squinting face, I'm actually really enjoying this. Tell me more. What is this? And it was just a Springbank 10-year-old, and I thought, well, this has got flavour. This has got character. It doesn't hurt on the way down. And of course, really feeling really proud of myself, being able to drink a neat whiskey without making too many squinting faces. So, that kind of opened a little door for me to see that there was something in this. But it wasn't until a few months later, it was in a bar and spotted this nice brown bottle with a kind of old-fashioned looking label and a wee red strap on the top, and thought, right, what's that up there? 16 years old, that's probably going to be over budget for me, back in my student days. But, £2.50 a nip, that's how old I am. Back then for Lagavulin, 16 years old, and one sniff and one taste of that, and that was it. I was just, nobody spoke to me the rest of the night. They might have, but I wasn't listening. I was just so, my brain, everything was inside that glass trying to figure out what the hell was I drinking. And that was the moment. That was the light bulb moment. I thought, I need to find out more about this stuff. Suddenly, became really patriotic, thinking, yeah, I'm Scottish. I should know more about whiskey. And it's true, we all should. We really should. We take for granted our knowledge, and it's a kind of symptom of things being on your doorstep. You tend to ignore them. I think from certainly my generation, you guys are not far off my generation as well, but grew up with that kind of, well, you don't drink what your dad or your grandpa drank, and isn't it wonderful to see that we're out of that now, or we're starting to get out of that now when you see the dynamic at whiskey tastings and festivals, especially abroad. But yeah, so I kind of stood out a little bit, being the only one of my pals who took any interest in whiskey, and tried to get them into it as well, so I could have the excuse of making road trips up to these wonderful places that I'm lucky enough to go to today and find out more. But no, it was a self-discovery journey, a journey of self-discovery that I went on, and so that sort of started it. And anybody who knows me knows that I don't do things by half measures. If it's my hobby, if it's my passion, it takes over my life, and that's it. I don't do things by half. So I ended up going on a little, what should we call it? Distillery bagging. Doesn't sound right, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I had a list, and I was ticking them off. Going up to distilleries to find out more, and obviously doing some tours as well at the same time. And I remember going to Oban Distillery way back, was it 2005, 2006, and went on a tour, and the guy that was doing the tour was big and he was burly and he was big white beard and so engaging with everybody. There was kids on the tour as well, and he was
Was it Santa?
He was to me. He was to me that day. All my Christmas.
Work in the summer.
You're getting his summer job, earning some pennies. Somebody's got to pay for that reindeer feed.
Exactly.
Pay for that whiskey for his for the sleigh. So as you can imagine where I'm going with this, the tour was just absolutely out of this world. I learned so much. It was so engaging. It was so everyone in the room, even if they were not as whiskey geeky as me at the time, was absolutely just fascinated with every word that was coming out of this guy's mouth. And then on the same trip, I ended up at another distillery, which just because I'm going to say this, I'm not going to name it, but also in the Diageo family, not far from Pitlochry. Went on a tour there too, and
has a distinct cheesy aroma to some of its whiskey.
Cheesy aroma and some ivy. I think I'm getting a feeling of ivy growing around the building. So I went on a tour there as well, and absolutely 100% nothing against the wee lassie who was doing the tour. It was a summer job. She was just temp, and it was like reading off a script, which she did very, very well. But again, looking around, and there's people from Sweden, there's people from the US, there's people from the Far East, and I'm thinking, my goodness, their experience of whiskey, this could be their first experience of a distillery. Imagine if Santa was here doing the tour instead of Josie. It absolutely made such a difference to me, and that was inspiration to say, well, actually, I could do that. I could give that a go. I've got something to offer. I've at home, friends. I've got no one's interested in me talking about whiskey. No one wants to hear my cheesy tasting notes and all the stories about whiskey. So if I could do something like that, then I would have a way of getting this out. But then quickly realised that without any experience, first and foremost, or marketing degree or other languages, getting into a role that I wanted was going to be pretty tricky. So I couldn't go back to uni at that point to study marketing. Couldn't be bothered learning French. Who wants to do that? So my other opportunity thought was, well, if I can get some experience, the whole chicken and egg thing. So going around whiskey festivals, speaking to the ambassadors at these festivals, and just trying to see what I could do. And then I bumped into Mr. Fred Lang and Jan Beckers from Douglas Lang. Mm-hmm. And instead of being met with the usual, I'll need to send an email upstairs, I'll need to speak to someone, or give me your details, and then never hearing from them, he just smiled and said, "What's your name?" "Yes, you can help out. You're the kind of guy we need." I was like looking around saying, "Talk to me? Can't be talking to me." But he was talking to me. So anyway, lucky enough to sort of shadow Jan Beckers at a few whiskey festivals, tastings, just to get a feel for it and the experience of what it is to stand behind a stand or stand behind a bottle and talk about whiskey. Some really terrifying experiences. I've been chucked in at the deep end, but that's what I needed at the time. I hope you weren't expecting a short answer here. Nope. I just realised this. I'm just getting started.
A short journey is not worth taking.
Should we have a break?
Prop up your glasses. I've just topped mine up with the Tienenich, the Madeira wine quarter cask.
Ah, that was a good one.
Yeah, 2014, 10-year-old. It's got such a good nose on it.
Yeah, it was a cheeky wee quarter cask, so it was pretty full on. So we do like a purist whiskey, as we discussed before, but we're also happy to cater for those oak freaks, and that was certainly one of them as well. But I had a nice amount of the fruit from the Madeira as well, just to balance that out. So and
no Parmesan cheese at all.
No, you can keep the grater away in that one. It's fine. Yeah.
I got into my bottle of Fife whiskey. No, Leith. No, Fife. Somebody messaged me and asked me what I thought of it, and I said it reminded me of lemon drizzle cake, that one that my mum made, because it had like a slightly smoky burnt taste. It was really sweet. And I've just seen your tasting notes, and it says, what does it say on it?
I can't take any credit or blame for that. That's got a story in itself, this one as well. Which is why when I bumped into you at Fife, you said you'd bought that. And then I think it was the next day or later on, whatever, I texted you to say, what did you think of that? Because I didn't really have much say in putting that bottling together. And I was busy. One of my busy weeks, one of the 3 busy weeks a year that I have, and kind of missed all that. I missed Justine. I don't know if Karen was there as well, coming up to the warehouse and selecting the Fife bottling for this year. And when I found out they'd picked a 6-year-old of all the candies we had in that warehouse, but obviously the Fife connection, it's a new distillery, but I was immediately quite nervous about it because 6-year-old whiskey. But I did try it, and I was like, wow, okay, interesting, absolutely interesting, and that's what you want for an exclusive. And I'm sure, Mike, when you're getting exclusives from the shop, you want whiskies that people are going to recognise the flavours. But if there's a chance of getting something that just is different,
it's a standout,
yeah, go for it. So
it's quite funny. I'm drinking a Madeira quarter cask. This now, our last exclusive was an Octave, which is again another form of smaller cask, and the one before that was a Madeira wine. So I've got kind of almost both of these combined to pick up on this one. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Things that are different, things that stand out. Maybe not the best whiskies you've ever, not the mind-blowing best thing, but something that has that stand out about it or a story behind it that you can kind of get involved with. Because whiskey's an experience, isn't it? And
yeah. I've not had much feedback from it yet, but I have tried it a few times now, and yes, I stand by it. The spirit that they're producing up at Inchstern is really, really good. We've got lots of it. 6-year-old is probably the oldest. In fact, it will be the oldest that we have, and it's maturing so well. Yeah. Last week, actually, the Blether having a discussion about new distilleries, and then after I sort of read back my comments saying there's too many new distilleries, I then remembered that, well, if they're making spirit that good, and those are one of the ones that are selling to us, then I certainly will not be having a go at them. But honestly, the stuff is really good. The peated and the unpeated are maturing really, really well. So watch out for whatever they end up doing in the future. And the thing is, they're really, really good with independent bottlers as well. I know James Eady's bottled a few really good ones. And when they found out we were bottling that for the Fife, we're always waiting to see, what they're going to say. Are they going to approve? Are they going to be questioning it? Are they going to want samples first? And we did. Gregor got an email or a phone call from his contact. I don't deal with it, but I can't remember who it was. But he was like, "Oh, there's an email here from Inchstern since they found out we're bottling it." What did they say? Are they a bit nervous about it? No, he just wants 3 bottles. Just wants 3 bottles to drink. It's like, oh, okay. So one of the, I suppose, few examples where you have a distillery quite openly say, "Yeah, you guys are going to do a good job for us. You're going to help us." Because I think the industry is the other way around just now. You've got so many distillers they've invested millions in marketing and getting their brand out there, and then all of a sudden, some family creates a new independent bottler and starts firing it all into wine casks and sherry casks and all sorts, and could muddy the waters a little bit. I do understand that.
Yeah.
But I'm always keen to. I mean, how many times have you tried a whiskey from an independent bottler and it's formed a negative opinion out of that distillery? And very, very rarely. I think we all like to think that we do distilleries a credit rather than a disservice. So,
yeah,
I think that was a rant. Actually, that was a rant underneath all that. But,
so I think you're absolutely right. When if you're a distillery fan, say you're a big fan of Glendronach, just because the bottle's here, but you tried a port cask Glendronach, you're like, oh, that's not for me. You don't go off Glendronach, you go back to the ones of that distillery you like. But if you try an independent bottler version of a Glendronach, you didn't like it, you would just not buy from that indie bottler again. You would go back to the distillery. Yeah, so I think as independents, you have this kind of custodial responsibility to take care and make sure that cask's as good and a fair representation of the distillery as well. I think that's important because you're given punters who are obviously fans of certain distilleries, a twist. But if you twist it too far, it's not going to represent that distillery. They're going to lose that. And again, it's the second time I've said that. If you lose the trust of whoever's bottling it, then you could lose that customer for life, and because the competition's as fierce as it's ever been now.
Yeah, exactly. I still stand by that independent bottlers are doing distilleries more credit than, and whether they recognise that, as I say, is a different. That's a whole different blether.
Yeah, I mean, it's good that they got in touch with you and said that it's kind of almost an endorsement, isn't it? We want to buy your bottles. That's how much faith we have in you. Yeah,
endorsement in the first place to sell us IBCs of New Make Spirit and let us do what we want to do with it, and that's good to see that they're quite happy with that. But no, I think they were quite happy with the Fife bottling, and there's still a few bottles left as well, I think. But no, really, really good. Good to watch out for the future of that. I know there's a few other casks in our warehouse floating around that are pretty good as well. That we're keeping an eye on for the future.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's good. It's very sweet, but it's good. It's not good.
Alan has asked us a question. Alan's just asked on YouTube. Can we ask Paul if you're noticing a reduction in the cask prices at the moment?
From what I've heard, yes. I'll just say right now, I don't. It's not one of my many jobs. That's kind of Gregor's. That's his forte. That's his go-to. That's basically what we do as a business anyway. It's Gregor it took me on to let me do these kind of things and get out and about, whereas he can run the business and source the casks. That's his area. But as far as I'm aware, in general, we are just about starting to see that change. Whether it's to do with the whole investment bubble bursting or just general downturn in the economy, things like that as well. But we always knew it would happen.
Yeah. I've heard from a few other indies, Mark and Andrew at Little Brown Dog, and that. I think what the customers need to realise is just because they're buying the casks now that are cheaper doesn't mean that the prices are automatically going to come down, because you guys have probably still got casks that you bought 4 or 5 years ago that you need to sell as well. It's finding that balancing act of, can we knock down these prices a little bit off the last cask and make it up? Find that kind of equilibrium between what you're buying now and what you've bought before, rather than saying, right, prices are going to crash.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think there's another element to consider as well, and there's more makes coming out now that we didn't see before. Potentially, the whole reason I was at Ben Nevis Distillery today is an example of that, because that disappeared. As far as we're concerned, anyway, I can't speak for some of the other independent bottlers who might have been getting access to it, but especially of that kind of age. The one I picked up today was from 1998, and I know for a while the kind of mid to late 90s when Nevis just was like gold dust. I mean, it wasn't cheap. Don't get me wrong. It's not like we're going to be giving this away, but pricing when it comes to putting together a release with bottles, we're pretty boring in that regard. We're quite simply taking our margin on top of what we paid for the cask. There is a little bit of play, which you touched on, about stock that you purchased years ago and the price of that now versus the loss, things like that. We're quite lucky. I'm quite lucky that when I joined Gregor back in 2020, we had the foresight anyway to start looking at building portfolio many years before. That's a big part of our agenda now. Bottling good whiskey, but also where we can, adding to the portfolio for the future. Hence, buying IBCs of New Make from Inchterny, places like that make sellers. We are bottling casks just now, which has been within the business for 7-8 years, and of course we're going to charge the price that would relate to that product. But the best way to what we simply do with that is we use that to balance out the ones that we are still paying a little bit over the odds for, and that keeps the price across the range. So perhaps we're lucky compared to maybe a newer independent bottle, or not so lucky compared to some of the more established ones. We still have that little bit of wiggle room, and that we can use that to kind of balance out. I suppose giving you more examples of that, where I picked up yesterday, and we've already bottled our very first ever cask of Pulteney, which was quite exciting. I'm still able to continue this distillery bagging now within an independent bottling role, where we're trying to cover as many different distilleries as possible. But yeah, first cask of Pulteney, which is 13 years old. You're buying mature stock. Let's face it, the person you're buying it from knows that they've got an asset there. They know they've got a distillery that you don't see too often floating around the independent market. They know they've got something that's ready to go. 13 years old, of course, it should be ready to bottle. So we can use that. We can purchase that, knowing that it's not the cheapest, but also then balance it out with stock that we've maybe had maturing for a little bit longer as well.
Yeah,
that all helps.
What would be the bucket list cask? If you had a distillery you could pick.
That was going to be my question. You stole it.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
you can't say Springbank.
Nah, my brain, my little hamster's going around here thinking of things like Brora, Port Ellen, Springbank. Well, actually, I'd already said that. Glen Talkers,
You've never done a Glen Talkers?
Well, I did painfully watch back the last Blether that we did, which I thought was like 2 years ago, and then when I watched it back, it's like 2021.
It's like COVID time, isn't it?
That was felt like yesterday.
That's when the other guy was on. We can't remember his name, Russell or something. Nobody cares.
Yeah, a white beard guy. Yeah, Santa Claus.
I was going to say, was he not a tour guide once?
Yeah, that was good. That was actually, I really enjoyed that part, because it was so appropriate, considering that week we were, Gregor and I were having our nose over a glass of Glen Talkers, and we've had that discussion. And you know what? It split the room. It was me and Russell who liked Glen Talkers. You and Gregor were against it, and I thought, well, that's better odds than I normally end up with. So I've got a chance here. So of course, right back into the warehouse again with Gregor saying, right after that Blether and conversation, you're not a bit more confident now that there is other people out there, as crazy as me that like Glen Talkers? And he was like, no. So he is the boss after all. But we did bottle that cask eventually. I think I can't remember when we put it into the secondary cask. I really liked it as it was. But
I'll admit I have since found a couple of Glen Talkers that I've enjoyed. So yeah, it's out there as long as it's well managed.
What is it about Glen? I've never had it. So what is it about Glen Talkers that's dividing people? Like, what's its character? Like, what's the problem?
Do you know what? I think for me anyway, we touched on it, and it can be summed up by what we discussed before about forming opinions. Yeah, you obviously don't see much Glen Talkers, official Glen Talkers. I think now they've got some sort of core bottling or core range, but before, no, it was always independent bottlers, and it just so happened that the few that I'd tried before forming that opinion were all absolute bangers, really, really good. And so immediately I'm like, wow, that's a really good whiskey. Let's find out more about that. And we're human, first impressions. We form opinions and they stick, and it's hard to shift that. And that might be the simple thing with you, Mike, as well, where you've a few that you tried, and now
I just found it lacked character. Is kind of what put me off. Anyway, it was maybe because it was over oaked in that bottle, the couple of bottles that you say. But there's others that just don't appeal. Like Fetter Cairn is one. I struggled to find a Fetter Cairn that I enjoy. The odd independent bottler will take one out that I think actually, that's pretty good. But it says just you form an opinion. It's like people who don't like red Skittles, but they love the yellow ones. There's just something in there that, but if you throw them all together, in your mouth, and you'll eat it. So
that's the weirdest analogy that you've come up with yet, I think.
But it's actually, that's what blenders do.
That's exactly what I was going to get at.
Do you think every cask that goes into Glenfiddich 12-year-olds however many thousand it is, they're all absolutely stellar casks. No, of course they're not. There'll be absolute stinkers in there, but by the time you stick them all in your mouth in one go, try picking out that yellow one now.
Yeah.
No chance.
That's very
exactly
true.
how me and Tony had this, because Tony loves the red Skittles. That's my wife, Tony, for the guys who at home who don't know. She loves the red Skittles. I just like Skittles, and I don't pick them out. I just a handful, like eating nuts, a handful, and then you go in and chew them all up. And that's basically what blenders do. Yeah, you if I really didn't like red ones, I wouldn't pick them out. I would leave them in a handful, and you wouldn't notice that they're there. So yeah.
No doubt that's how it works. There's also another theory to it as well. If they did put all their best casks into a particular batch, then they would have that bar set so high. Yeah. And I'm not suggesting for a second that anyone deliberately keeps the bar low, but it's consistency. They're trying to create consistency. So I think I got out of that one there just in time.
You did. Mark, I was talking about that in the film, though, wasn't he? In the new film at Leith, that he just had that cask that he just kept going back to, and just like crap every single time he went back to it. Like just nothing he could do was just making it any better.
Yeah.
But,
and then somebody wanted it. He was like, "You sure? Yeah,
you sure? Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's one of those things people don't understand as well. Like they pick up a bottle off the shelf and they see it like 12 years old, and they think, oh well, it's been a barrel sitting in a warehouse for 12 years. Some burly warehouse man's come in and rolled it out, and it's been bottled. And you've put a Glenfiddich sticker on it and put it into the shelf. It's really not the case at all. But like, it's not. People just don't know that. Like, it's just not part of the story to get told unless they start asking questions, or they've got a guide that tells them. So, yeah, I do get that. I get your Skittle analogy, Mike. We all know that black wine gums are the worst ones, and nobody should eat those. They're shit. But it's a different story.
I like them.
I like them.
You like them?
Yeah.
Fine. I'm posting my wine gums to you guys then. The black ones. I'm going to keep the rest.
Save them up, and we'll make a banging single cask wine gum bag.
I am going to make you a bralette of black wine gums for your Secret Santa for Christmas. I've ruined the secrets. You're going to know it's me now.
That's going to be such a lot of bags of wine gums you're going to have to eat between now and Christmas to get a full bra for these moves.
So if you are going to upstage me with a cleavage at Christmas, then I'm not even participating in a Christmas night. I made the mistake of mentioning one year at the whiskey shop that penguins are not Christmassy because they come from the South Pole, right? There's nothing Christmassy about that at all. So every single year since I started the whiskey shop, guess what I get for my Secret Santa? Fucking penguins. Every single year. Penguin hoodie, penguin towel, penguin Christmas crackers, penguin Christmas card,
racing penguins. They were cool. We had a lot of fun with the racing penguins. So
we did have a lot of fun.
Paul sitting there like, what the fuck? Yeah, I'm going to put my bra on and get some attention again.
I'm not having a cleavage off with you either. Like, I'm not competing with you boys with your cleavages.
Again, I'm thinking of topics for future Blethers here.
We'll maybe put that in the over 18 section.
Yeah, I'll pop that in the notes as well for future Blethers. Cleavages.
We've got Stephen Gibson, aka Springer Ginger, on tonight. He's asking Paul, he'd love to pop in with Camlin Beverage and visit Gregor and yourself in Dalgety Bay sometime. Is this possible? They're working in Inverkeithing.
Short answer, yes. We're technically not open, to the public or anything, but I mean, come by, swing by, absolutely, no problem at all. Especially fairly local as well. Bill, it was good to keep in touch. Yeah, nothing exciting to see. I don't know why you would have any interest in coming to see us. There's just paper everywhere and, empty bottles and full bottles and stuff. So, yeah, absolutely.
There you go. Got yourself a wee day out there.
Major
behind
Nut
the
says
scenes of
it
whiskey.
must be a male thing. Major Nut says the black ones are the best.
Oh my god! I don't know. Maybe it's my synesthesia. Maybe I just can't deal with black sweets. I don't know.
Do they
I've got-
smell black? Do they taste black when you taste them?
I've got a ridiculous theory about black sweets. I'm not even going to tell anybody because everybody just thinks I'm mental when I do it. So, but no, they're just weird. They're minging. I don't like them.
So, like,
Doesn't matter. All about me.
any black sweets.
Fruit pastels as well. Fruit pastels, the black ones are the best as well. The rest all taste the same, but the black ones have a taste. It's different. And
No, I'm not keen.
Yeah.
Are you just racist against black sweets then, Kat? Is that
What have you done?
Yeah. Let's just call me a racist on a live chat. That's awesome. Yeah. No. Cat needs to do a blind tasting of wine gums. I would still pick out the black ones for sure.
would you? I am gonna. Yeah, no, we're doing that.
You're gonna put it to test.
You're in the shop on Saturday.
You
That is what your afternoon is. Black.
Get your wine gums.
Wine tasting. Yeah.
Sports mixtures as well. Black ones are shit. Bring them all on. I guarantee I'll pick out your black ones in a non-racist way. Can we just make that clear, everyone? Okay. But yeah, that's lunch. That's lunch sorted.
I think David Stark has just summed it up on Facebook. The tangents of this blether are ... I don't think we could describe them quite yet.
It started off. I mean, the bra started it off. Like, you opened us up to like a whole world of, a whole world of different shit. I don't want to know because we know what you've got on underneath.
Well, 8 minutes to 9, so yeah.
That's when the good stuff happens. Stick around, guys.
Business on top, party on the bottom. We'll count down for that. Mike, put a countdown up on the screen. Did we even finish your journey? You asked for a break, and we've literally gone off on a tangent of black wine gums. I think we got as far as you becoming a brand ambassador. No, have we even got into? No, we haven't even got into you becoming a brand ambassador yet. I don't even know we've got that far.
Get as far as me cleaning Fred's shoes. I think that's what polishing his boots. But yeah, no, I think that's where we were at. But I suppose there's a lot of ups and downs. My journey with the whiskey sort of sums up life in general, where sometimes something unfortunate has to happen to then make you realise, that there's other possibilities and that other things can happen. Things that you wouldn't have did before the unfortunate thing happened. And at the time where I was helping out with Douglas Lang, I was a postman. I was working as a postman. I had 6 years as a wee postie, and it was a okay job. It was pretty steady. Wasn't really a lot of money or anything like that, but it's not the kind of job that I would have given up to then take on just a sales assistant job at the whiskey shop. But you ended up losing that job mainly because I've got a bit of a dodgy knee playing football, and I kind of used up a few sick days. As you can imagine, you kind of need your knees as opposed to walking up and down stairs with heavy bags. So I kind of hurt my knee a few times, but I was absolutely convinced that I had one more strike left before I got the kind of disciplinary. And I ended up going to a gig with my friend, and we kind of got talking to the band. As soon as they found out they liked whiskey, I was like, well, hey, let's go to the bar. And before we knew it, we were kind of in the dressing room drinking lots of whiskey. And bearing in mind, this is a Wednesday night, and I woke up the next morning thinking, I cannot face this. I'm fine. I've got one more strike. I'll phone in sick and it'll be okay. So I phoned in sick and then went back into work the day after, and I'd already used my last strike. So long story short, I was out. So looking for a job, and I took that job at the whiskey shop in Edinburgh. Kind of minimum wage, having to travel through from Cumbernauld to Edinburgh. And if you're from Glasgow or Edinburgh, you're born and bred there, then you know that you usually don't have any need to go to that other place. That's the kind of place you go to see a castle and then get back out as soon as you can, because why when you've got everything else in the other city? So it was quite painful having to drag myself through £65 a week on the train for a minimum wage job, but it got me working with whiskey. That was the important thing, and I took that opportunity when I wouldn't have done otherwise. I wouldn't have given up a steady paying Monday to Friday 9 to 6 job to work all sorts of hours through in Edinburgh. But as I say, 3 years there, working with whiskey, talking to people every single day about whiskey, and my experience paid off there, because Darren, who ran the 3 Edinburgh shops, he recognised that I had a bit more potential than just working on a shop floor, doing tastings, even if I did convince people that they put apples into whiskey halfway through the journey. He recognised that I had more potential and gave me the opportunity to go up and down the country, sort of doing training for the staff, the other whiskey shops up and down the country, and tastings for them as well. So that was great to get that experience, bit of confidence, bit of knowledge. And then I bumped into Mr. David Sturck at a tasting he was doing for Glasgow Whisky Club, which I'm a member of. And as I was doing to every single person that worked in whiskey at the time, he's a job. Any job's going. I'm desperate, And he quite rightly at the time said, no, I'm just a small operation that just don't have the capacity to take anyone on. And kind of left it at that. And I think it must have been, David might remember if he's on, and if he's still on, I think about a year, maybe less, just randomly got a message saying, are you still looking for a job? Now, bearing in mind, at this time, I'd been for about 18 interviews. I'd got as far as interviews for marketing reps and, luxury connoisseurs for White Mackay and things like that. Jobs that I would have taken if I was given, but looking back now, thinking, that's just not me. I am not that kind of guy. Anyway, glad I didn't get them. And David offered me a job, but I was like, wow, it's a long way. Thornhill that's an hour and 20 minutes, but what have I got to lose? I'm spending an hour and 20 minutes travelling on a bloody train every single day, so what have I got to lose? And went down to meet David, showed me around, and genuinely pinching myself that I had the opportunity to work at this level, considering I was back then, still am now, a kind of whiskey geek, and I had this opportunity to actually work hands-on with the liquid. So yeah, no-brainer, absolutely no-brainer. So that's where I went to from there, 2015 to 2018. So yeah, again, unfortunate circumstance, losing a job, getting that opportunity to get a bit of experience with whiskey, gave me the opportunity to work with David. And actually, just while I'm talking about creative whiskey, that's my next dram. Wanted to show you this one anyway, because it's kind of a little... David will like me showing you that. Smashing labels that Katie Coulthart, who works for Claxton's now. If you were at the Independent Bottler Festival, did you get as far around as Claxton's?
It was a fair fight to get through the crowd there. They had some banging drams.
We've got him coming on to Blether soon, though.
Yeah, we've got Adrian on in May. Yeah.
Look out for that one. So she's fantastic job designing these labels, but just as a little concept that David come up with, the idea of the single cask exclusives, not naming distilleries, putting a little code there. This one's called Peated Highland and the code's AM. No idea. Any ideas, Kat, where that could be from? Some Peated Highland that's AM on the code?
Goodness knows. But I bet it's a very, very beautiful distillery with really good quality staff, especially the guides.
That's quite a stretch from just that little bit of information that I gave you. It could be Ardmore. It could well be. And
I was thinking Ardmore Markin's doing well to have that.
Bit before their time, considering this is an 8-year-old whiskey bottled back in 2016. That would be something else. But
yeah.
But the reason why
I was probably. Go on. No, I was going to say, I was probably living down near Thornhill when you guys were down there. I was down there around about that time. Yeah. Not even, I say this every week, I lived there, but I generally did. My dentist was in Thornhill, so could I come and pass? Said hello at the time. If only I'd known.
Yeah, small world, certainly small world down there. That was an interesting place to operate, but really fantastic time. But, oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. I think Dumfries and Galloway and the borders are just they're overlooked. The people come up north and they keep driving until they get to the Highlands.
so underrated. Like really pretty coast, loads of farmland, so much forestry, and like it's got the best what do you call it, like night sky, isn't it? Like sort of unpolluted, open, like you can see the stars better down there. That's what I'm trying to say. Really, really pretty.
Yes. Yeah. David Stark is asking where.
So I lived just out of Money Ive. So yeah, about 20 minutes away from Thornhill. Really pretty.
And Leanne is on, Scotch in the Bayou.
Oh, yeah.
Land you all. I love Leanne. This is so much fun. 3 of my favourite people. Oh, bless you.
Yay. We accosted Leanne at the Leith Whisky Festival. She was trying to speak to somebody and we just kind of like grabbed her.
That was my biggest regret of the festival, was not going down for the full weekend, because there's so many people there that we know we only see on things like this or in the Aquavites. We get the chance to speak to them or through social media, but seeing them in person again was amazing. Alan Smith, I agree. Leanne has the best accent in whiskey. I think she does. So much fun.
Yeah, she really is. She came to visit our warehouse as well. And, I don't know if she was expecting a full liquid tour of the warehouse, but she certainly got that. Whether she wanted to or not. But that's she's lovely, really nice. More people like that, please, in the industry, and then we'll be fine. We'll be fine. Yeah.
She was part of what I still regard as one of, if not my favourite memory of whiskey. We were on the Isle of Whiskey Academy, and I think Leanne, you'd won the chance to come over. She wrote a letter as to why she should be allowed to come to Scotland for this trip, and it was Nicola Sturgeon actually picked her letter to come over, and so we were on the course. And during the Ardbeg tour, if you've been to Ardbeg, out on the pier that goes out into the sea behind the distillery, they took us down there, and they asked Leanne to pull out the lobster creels in the sea, and they pulled out, and in the lobster creel was a kelpie, the bottle of not an actual kelpie, that would have been probably made the news, that would. The bottle of the Ardbeg kelpie came out, and they were expecting this, obviously, and we were like, oh, this is a great experience. But also in the creel were 2 lobsters that came out with it. They'd actually accidentally caught 2 lobsters in the creel. We're like, so do we get to eat the lobster with the whiskey, or what happens? They're like, oh, no, we'll just put them back in. So out came the bottle, the creels went back in, then they poured them over some oysters on the pier, and it was just amazing. Group of guys who'd become friends very quickly over a few days, sharing kelpie and oysters on the Ardbeg pier, looking back at the distillery. Just an amazing experience.
That's cool.
Yeah. Can't beat it.
Yeah.
Nice. Jealous.
There is just something magical about drinking whiskey and where it's made as well. And I don't know if that quite extends to independent bottlers in their modern warehouses, but there is just that. It's all about place, time, place, all the things that come together. People, yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. I bet Leanne had the best time coming and hanging out in your warehouse covering paper and empty bottles. She would have been right for that. And she always sent a lovely handwritten letter with a wee alligator sticker on it, which I just thought was the best thing ever, which I've still got.
And she says, that was an epic tour, Paul. Thanks again to you and Gregor. And Galix?
Yeah, I think there's a funny story there, but I can't remember it. But yeah, Alex, oh, no, I remember now. Yeah. So yeah, the warehouse guys are just like they're such a unit together that they instead of Gavin and Alex, we just go Galix. Galix will get it. So
like Brangelina.
Yeah.
Not a couple. We're not making aspersions on them or anything.
There might be a bit of romance in there. I don't know. Maybe when Gregor and I are not there, who knows what goes on? Certainly no work anyway. So
I'm not sure if drawl kind of rolls off the tongue quite as well. Gregor, no, that's a different story altogether. We're not going that way.
Yeah, there's certain names that don't stick together. I guess if you've got like a one-syllable name, it's not going to really stick to another one, is it? You need like a, I don't know. It's a working project. It's like, who are there? There's another famous celebrity couple that's like a two names stuck together. Who is it? I don't know. Can't remember. Is it like Kim Kardashian or somebody? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Whatever. I'm getting lost in a tangent again.
You are.
All right, I'm talking about whiskey.
I'm not really clued up on my
Celebrity couples.
Celebrity couples. Just not my scene. While you're thinking about it, though, Steve is asking, "Are you at Clackman next week, Paul?"
Yeah. Looking forward to that one. I enjoyed that one.
Yeah, a lot of people are talking about that. It's going to be a good festival. That.
Yeah, it's one that's really grown over the years as well. I like the guys that run it. Really good operation. Passionate people. So that can be all that matters sometimes. But it's good to see it grow. A lot more independent bottlers going as well, and good distilleries. So another good festival. And as I say, it's just up the road for me as well. So. And as long as Alex can come along, I can do my usual floating around both sides of the table, which I'm getting much better at. I'm getting better at multitasking.
I saw you on the other side of the table.
Yeah.
At, where was it?
Was it Alex you were with in Leith?
Sorry?
Was it Alex you were with in Leith?
Yeah. But just to be clear and just to get this out of the way, he's always away more than I am. But that's the beauty of whiskey festivals. I know we spoke about them quite a lot, but I suppose it's a whiskey geek in me as well that can enjoy working. If you call it work, that's for that.
Yeah.
That very thin line. It's already a very, very thin line, but after a few drams, it's a very fuzzy thin line between work and play at whiskey festivals, and actually to be able to do both, and to some certain degree of professionality as well. After a few drams, it really is a privilege to do that. I always say, I'm quite do a whiskey tasting during the week. It's on a school night, and people are saying, "Well, you're drinking as well." It's like, yeah, as long as I'm one behind you, that's all that matters. As long as you look more drunk than I am, that's all that matters. You know what it's like when you're really drunk and you're talking to somebody about the next day, and you swear that they were stone cold sober, because you were just that little bit more drunk than they were. So
yeah,
it's live on those words.
It was. I think we mentioned right at the start of the evening. This is Kat's 2-year anniversary of being on the Blether.
Yes.
And
where's the story going, Mike?
For you, for your first. Well, I think David Stark was your first guest, wasn't he?
I was terrified. Yeah, it was.
And then the week after, we had the group one with
Keith boys.
No, we had Paul, Ian Forteeth and Ian McAllister and Russell and you.
Yes, because David Stark was my official first over to you now. I stepped in for you because you couldn't do it because I was with Russell, and then we did the big handover with all the Ians.
Yeah, and then your first one with me was with Johnny and Angus.
Oh, that was really scary because you're like, okay, I don't want to stress you out, but this is a really big deal because we've worked really hard to get these guys, and they're quite intense. And I was like, what? Oh my god, this is really scary. And you messaged me halfway through. You are allowed to talk. I'm like, I don't want to talk. I don't want to.
That was good fun. I mean, if you start off with something like that, then the rest's going to be pretty easy. But I was watching back on the big one because I had a tasting on, so I was kind of almost missing Russell's farewell. But when I joined after my tasting, everyone in the room was pretty hammered. It'd been going on for 3 hours. And then I joined in. We went on for another. I think the whole thing ended up nearly 6 hours. And by the last hour and a half was just
mayhem. It was
5 pissed people in a room talking. It was crazy. And the great thing is you can go back and watch that if you want. It's not that kind of in a pub thing where you try to remember what you're talking about. We can actually go back and
No, nobody wants to. There's a couple of Blethers. I'm just nobody's ever watching that back again. If we could just delete that from YouTube, it would be awesome. But yeah, you just got to pace yourself, I think, don't you? It's always in the green room afterwards where all the action happens and all the secrets get spilled, guys. Anyway, sorry about that, but yeah.
I know.
Perks have been invited on.
Happy
That's
days.
true.
Yeah, absolutely. We should start a kind of behind the scenes members club where people pay for the privilege of joining us in the green room, and we'll just
Like a fans only.
unrecorded spurtle of rubbish coming out. Stephen's asking what Murray McDavid do I have? The Catcraft. This is an inch gower. This is from their previous release, not the current one. It's an inch gower and another Madeira. I have so many Madeira wine casks kicking about at the moment. Is that one? You're asking for the Woodrows. I've got 2 Woodrows. A Tianinic 10-year-old. That is their Sherry Hoggy from last year. And I've got the Deanson 15-year-old. That was a shop exclusive for the guys up at Barrels and Botanicals. And what was the other one? LBD. I've got the Royal Brackla, and I've got the Glasgow Distillery sitting here. And I think I've got another one kicking about, which you probably won't see, but I'll show you it. Oh, I've got the wee mongrel up here, batch 1. It's probably my only unopened bottle at the moment. I don't know why. I think I've got another bottle of that downstairs, and that's why this one's unopened. That's up here for display purposes only.
You were going to forget about that one night and just crack into it on the Blether. I know for a fact.
I know. I've still got my Ron Welsh signed
empty bottle.
No, it's not, but it's cracked. I cracked it open and realised it was the one that Ron gave me when he was up at the distillery. So I need to find him. I know he's working for Gin Bothy now, but I need to find him and get him to sign another.
Yeah, doing consultancy for a few places, I think. He's busiest retired man in the industry.
That cork is very loose in there. That doesn't give much.
Well, it's probably not even a real. It's probably somebody else's cork. Well, I've never been accused of a slack cork before, so I'm not accepting that at all. I will get you a new cork. I will bring it on Saturday with the wine gums. Okay.
I'll bring the wine gums. I'll prepare the wine gums for your blind tasting.
Okay. Somebody was asking about the Solera system because you did say you were going to go back to it at some point, Paul. And one of the questions was something about the Solera system. For what was it? I'll let you explain.
Yeah.
Right on cue.
Ooh, look at that.
Yeah. So as far as I'm aware, and probably the best place to put it out there is that is the only official real Solera system in Scotch whisky.
What about the 15-year-old Glenfiddich?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked. Rant warning. Anyway, okay. No, not at all. I can't do a rant. I'm too nice. Is it whiskey? Then no, that's all good. Yeah, of course, the word Solera was it back in the 90s or something that Glenfiddich started using that words on their labels for their 15-year-old, which their interpretation of a Solera is just a massive vat where they're filling it up with 15-year-old spirit, and then they bottle half of that and then top it up. The theory being that there's always liquid in there from yonder, and so you just don't know what you're going to get. But as far as I'm concerned, as far as we're concerned, the idea of the Solera system, it comes from the sherry industry, where you've got a pyramid of casks, and the sherry's matured in this pyramid, and you bottle half of the casks at the bottom, and then you top it up from the one above, and so on and so on and so on, and put the new freshly made wine in at the very top rows, as far as I understand it. Again, that's all to do with consistency. That every bottle that they bottle is always going to have a similar character because it's constantly mingling about. But there's also that little bit of magic that there's always going to be much older wines swirling about in those casks as well. So the idea of that concept has kind of inspired us to come up with something to make use of a parcel of whiskey that we didn't know what to do with. So before we had our own warehouse, we would send casks down to Whisky Broker. They were looking after our casks for us, re-racking and maturing and sending us samples and picking up from there. And we would send them down dozens of, wine casks, sherry casks, and we were getting them to re-rack from hogsheads. So of course, hogsheads, 250 litres into some of these sherry casks and wine casks were 200 or 225 litres. So you would occasionally get dregs, leftovers. What the hell are you going to do with it? So we gave them a very loose instruction to just combine all these leftovers, just all the remnants, put them all together. Whatever empty hogsheads you've got lying around, we'll worry about it later on. And so many, many years later, we ended up with 7 casks of this blend, basically, a blended malt, which we thought, okay, this is fine. This stuff's been mingling together. It's only getting older. But then we realised and that's why I said very loose instruction that we gave to Whisky Broker. They carried that on with the next job that we gave them. And the next job we gave them was we sent them down an IBC of new make, Ben Nevis, which they filled into casks for us, but then had a little bit left over. No prizes for guessing what they did with the leftovers. And the youngest whiskey in the casks to blend before was like 8 years old or something, and they just stuck new make into that vatting as well. So yeah, we had a bit of a dilemma, and seven casks of this blended malt that far too much for a small company like us. So we're scratching our heads trying to think of a way of creating like a batch system of release. And of course, we had St. Bridget's Kirk. So do we have a variant on that? How do we create a batch system out of that? Wouldn't it be great to do what they do in the sherry industry and have like a Solera where we can add at the top and then keep topping it up, and then every batch might be slightly different because the whiskey's been in that Solera a little bit longer? Nah, that's never going to happen. Never in a million years. But sure enough, a couple of phone calls to Speyside Cooperage. Can you do this? Can you create this system for us? And they said yes. So absolutely, take our money. And they sent down this system, in inverted commas, of 3 quarter casks and 2 pieces of wood to stack them on. It's like, right, that's what are we going to do with this? Gregor and I are really no good at DIY. Absolutely not a clue when it comes to anything like that. But fortunately, the wonderful unit that is Galax got their heads together and managed to connect these 3 casks in our little pyramid with some copper pipe. So you see that they're all kind of linked with the copper pipes. And so that's what we're doing. We're filling that up, bottling half of the one in the bottom right. And then because they're all connected, the liquid just flushes through, and then it half empties the top one and we top it up. The top one's Fino cask and the bottom 2 are Oloroso. And you can imagine that we were a little bit nervous though about this, because there's lots of red flags for the Scotch Whisky Association there. They're not going to be happy with two main things. And this is one of the rare examples where permission worked better than asking for forgiveness, because we told them exactly what we were going to do. Stick these copper pipes into the casks, so they're like, so there's actually going to be copper inside the cask and penetrating the wood. Yeah, okay. And you're going to be topping up with whiskey from another cask that you're going to have an age on it. No. So that's the 2 main things. Basically, we don't have an age statement on the bottle, and we don't suggest, and again, there's a good one for the inverted commas, we do not suggest that this whiskey is maturing or getting older in this Solera. I don't know about you, but I can't stop time.
Yeah.
I'll just leave it at that. I'll leave it at that. So, but basically, yes, so that's what we've been doing. We're on to batch 4 now, and it's getting better and better. The blend was pretty decent before. It was drinkable, but not very exciting. That's the thing. It was a lot of liquid with nothing to really USP, nothing to sell it.
So just to clarify, when that it was Ben Nevis new make went in, did you have to wait for that to be in that cask for 3 years minimum before you started the Solera system, before you could call that whiskey, if it's not aging as such?
Yeah, well, this happened so long ago anyway that it was already, I think it was 4 or 5 years old by the time we we first
Developed the system. Yeah.
put it into the Solera. So that was almost 2 years ago now. But of course, it's still 5 years old. I mean, we're not allowed to say that Ben Nevis is getting any older. It's
No.
Solaris, you know.
But yeah, so
Of
whatever's in there.
Of course we are.
It
You know.
is. It's
So yeah, just a bit of fun. A bit of fun. It's not expensive. It's a good story. I don't expect all the people that we sell the bottles to, you know, in the shops to remember all that and tell that story. But the best thing about it is it's just good bang for buck. It's, you know, you're operating in a market where independent bottler with a blended malt brand, you know, the list is endless, and you're competing in that market. You know, price wise, we can't do that. We can't be down at the, you know, the old purse prices and, you know, potentially scallywagging and like that.
You know, these guys do. Yeah, 30 quid. It's,
Yeah. Okay, let me rephrase. We could, but that's not what we wanted to do with this.
Yeah.
We wanted to do something exciting and a bit interesting. So,
The
not
race to the bottom
that
is
these
money.
whiskies are not exciting, but I just we would have had, you know, 7 casks worth of that blend. So, you know, it's too much of the one thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where we're at. So we bottled batch 4, which is just outstanding. The first 3 batches were in the bang for buck category. Now we're talking some real quality liquid. And after Fife Whisky Festival on the Sunday, we opened our doors in conjunction with Fife Whisky Festival. Did a couple of warehouse tastings. Just to let people see around the warehouse, and we obviously pulled some drams out of some casks and let them try it, but we let them try straight from the Solera as well. So what will eventually become batch 5, that's what people were trying, and you know, the stuff's getting better. I cannot believe it's getting better. It's getting to that point where, you know, I think we should have just held on a bit longer and waited to bottle batch 1 a bit later, because it's outstanding.
You're confusing me now, because if it's not maturing, how can it be getting better?
Just magic, isn't it? It's all the little, fairies and all that dance about in the warehouse and make things happen.
Make things happen, absolutely. Yeah. And I like that, because I think Solera literally translates into English as on the ground. I think that's where, because that's the bottom tier is where they bottle from. I think so you've got that on the ground, so you're completely within your rights to call it Solera system, I think. Yeah.
Someone told me as well that you know, Morrison Distillers, they have a Solera system, so immediately I went to check that out. But I might be wrong, and please correct me if you know better. But I don't think theirs is a Solera system. They call it Old Perth Solera, but I think what it is they've acquired 5 casks from a Solera system, and they vat the whiskey in there to marry and bottle it from those casks. So, you know, but they call it Solera. So I think that's the case. So. Until corrected, we have the only working Solera system in Scotch whisky.
And is that's cool. So on the bottom right, did I see you've got the copper pipe going up to the top, and then there's a valve at the bottom? Is that a tap at the bottom that you decant from?
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah. So so basically gravity pushes it back uphill.
Yeah, just a tap at the bottom.
Yeah, as soon as you top up the top one, the weight of the liquid pushes it through, and then the little spigot at the bottom is what we bottle from. Not we don't do it, you know, by hand. Okay, no, I'll go with that. That romantic notion that every single one's filled by hand, and you know, but
I remember
tap. That'd be really cool. Like those boxes of wine you used to get in the supermarket with little plastic taps on. That's what it's like.
Exactly like that.
Ruined the romance even more.
I remember being at the Springbank School in 2017. It was the week of the festival, and we were tasked with filling Cannon Heads bottles, and that was literally from the cask. There was like 6 of us, and we were siphoning garden hose into a jug, pouring it in a funnel, plastic funnel with a blue J cloth, and pouring it in. That was the filter system. It was literally hand filling hundreds of bottles in time for the festival. and there probably should have been a couple of extra bottles per release, but you got 6 guys in a whiskey week. You're going to lose some liquid in there. That's the most authentic kind of. Yeah, it was brilliant.
It is brilliant. When you see all the kind of modern mechanized bottling halls, and then you see that side of it, or you get involved at that side. You're taking bottles away that you're always going to cherish.
Yeah.
And yeah. So just thinking that actually back to that warehouse tour that we were doing, and then we're letting people buy bottles at the end as well, and they wanted one from the cask that they liked, and filling up the bottles with the Valinch. Catch it quick! Did you spill some? Yes, fine, don't worry, we'll get it later. And and all of a sudden there's all these bits of char ending up in the bottles. I said, can't sell it like that, can you? It's like, well, you can't get any more authentic than that, bits in your whiskey.
Yeah.
Some people ask.
Sorry.
Like if you're doing a bottle of your own, like some people ask not to filter it, they just want the bits left in it. Yeah. But I don't know if I want to pick bits out of my teeth after a dram, but they just they like the authenticness of it. Who knows what else is in there as well, like dead bugs and stuff. Probably not, but just probably put it through a filter.
There's been a few
filters. Yeah. We did tasting with Bruce Facker from Dramful. And it was during lockdown, so he sent me the sample bottles. We poured them into the tubes for sending out to the customers and that. And somebody phoned the shop and said, "Yeah, I've got kind of sediment in my bottles. Can I get new set?" And I'm like, "That's literally authentic whiskey." I don't think they understood what it was. I was like, "That's because Bruce has siphoned it from the cask and poured it straight into a bottle." I'm like, "That's just cask sediment. It'll be fine." He was like, "All right, oh, brilliant, yeah, cool." I says, "But don't tell them, because if other people don't have that, they're going to complain that they don't have it. You want that, unless it's a fly. If it's a fly, you can physically see wings. Then maybe we could send you a replacement." But no, it was just bits of char. Which, yeah, 100%.
It's better than glitter.
Better than glitter.
Better than glitter. Nobody's done a whiskey with glitter yet. Loads of gins with glitter, but nobody's done a whiskey with glitter. Probably for good reason.
Yeah.
Would you be allowed to add glitter because there's not flavour?
Probably. You wouldn't see it in whiskey though either, would you? It would just look like sand or something, wouldn't it? You wouldn't really see it shining in whiskey. Probably mark that one down as a more exploration needed.
Yeah, try it. What do you think of? Have you seen
the other end the same, the glittery coming out the other end? That's what you worry about it. Well, actually, what happens to all that glitter anyway? Where does it go? Where did that bit of carrot come from? I've not had carrots for 2 weeks, but yeah, there it is.
Yeah, little sparkly carrot coming out.
Nice. It's taking a turn. Are we talking about poo? We ended up talking about poo last week. Disgusting.
Well, I would have said sweet corn if I was talking about poo.
Okay.
How'd you pee a carrot?
I think you're talking about spewing, maybe not peeing. You can't.
As I said it, I kind of realised, there's another way, isn't it? Yeah.
Mike, I'm going to have to explain to you about all of the bits and what they do. And that'll be lunchtime on Saturday as well. Jeez, I'm going to have a busy day at work on Saturday. I'll draw some diagrams.
So Kat, you're working with a new member of staff on Saturday. So guys who are local to us, come in and see us. We've got Louise has started working with us. She was in today signing the contract, and so we'll have to get on her Blether and introduce her to the world.
Yes,
that would be cool. But Louise she worked in, for those local to Aberdeenshire, she has previous history working with Cask Bar. She worked in there, and she worked in their shop in the town as well. So really excited to have her on board and expanding our wee team. So just a wee plug for the guys who are local to come in and see it. Louise, she's going to be helping us with events and on the shop and all sorts. So great news there. I just thought I'd throw that in there. It seemed like an appropriate time. move us on from whatever conversation we were having before.
Nip it in the bud.
It's going to be some day though, because I haven't done a shift in ages. So Lily's going to have to teach me how to work the till again, because like I'm not going to remember what to do, Mike. Just going to fanny around talking about.
Well, I'm out on tour, so Janice is going to have her work cut out for her.
She'll keep me right. That'll be fine. Yeah, I'll come back.
And Paul, we'll have to get you back up for a tasting, a barrel top, or an in-house event, or both.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, I like getting out and about. Any excuse to come up north, especially the northeast, is always good. Lots to see, lots to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's a wee Gemma place. Always welcome. We're not looking at tourist board or anything.
So I think, guys, unless you fire in any other questions for us, I'm just looking back at the last couple of comments. Scotch on the Bayou Leanne says Solera has to have the movement to be real fluid from one cask to the other. Absolutely. So, yeah, it needs that movement. It's the journey to Flavour Town. 100%.
Nice, Leanne, you're the journey to Flavour Town. I like that. That's a good quote. That should go on the bottlings, Paul. You can put that in your next release. Journey to Flavour Town.
Put that on the label, yeah.
Yeah.
It'll become their catchphrase.
Who've got Steve is saying, I bet Mark Davison has a jolly time selecting the casks for your charity event around that time.
Yeah, apparently did. I had nothing to do with that, and apparently missed out on a good day because I was doing the real work at the Fife Whisky Festival.
The real work?
Yeah, the real work, yeah. Although I was driving that day, so, I was working, which is, when you pop by Cat and I was like, I probably look really miserable. And you're like, oh, what was wrong? Oh, I wasn't feeling great. No, just because I had to drive. And I don't mean that and like I'm only happy when I've got a dram in my hand. That's not what I mean. It is a fantastic festival. It is one of the festivals I would certainly have at the top of my list to go to as a punter. 2 problems with that. And one being that, it's our local festival, so I have to be there, working, represent. And 2, it's just a bugger to get to from my neck of the woods, unless I stay overnight. But fantastic show. But yeah,
it was. I think by the time I got to you, it was maybe a little bit worse for wear, but I had not eaten anything. But it was a very, very good festival. I enjoyed it a lot, I think.
You must be one of the few like me that's a good drunk then, because didn't know it's not, especially compared to some of the locals anyway.
Yeah, I just hug people, but yeah, it's fine. Only because they help me stay upright. I just move from one to the next, just gradually hugging people. Pretty much it. Yeah, I know it's a really good.
Yeah, I think it went really well. Although when Gregor told me the concept of Mark coming up, and I was like, all right, yeah, good. That's he's got a bit of a name, a bit of a pull. That'll do well. Great cause as well. What whiskies have you picked? Oh, I haven't picked. I'm just going to let Mark choose. Right, okay. That'll be interesting. I'd like to know what he picks. Just the idea of someone like him let loose in a warehouse. Would be an interesting thought. So yeah, I need to find out what they actually poured. It was one of those kind of don't want to know. I'm missing out. I don't want to know.
Yeah, what you don't know won't hurt you. Yeah. Stephen's also asking. He says, "Easy one for you, Paul. What's your favourite Lady of the Glen from the current outrun?"
Current is in. Oh yeah, so won't be the new one coming up that I could give a few plugs to the now, or we'll get to that, or from the current one that's just came and gone. Big fan of that tea and unique. I'm glad you poured that earlier on. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, that's nice. That sort of sums up, that sort of sums up a bit of us in that glass and that bottling. The adventurous side that we can have with the warehouse, with the own bottling hall. Little gambles like that we wouldn't necessarily take if we didn't have the casks right under our nose. Sticking a fairly light-bodied tea and unique into what we know is a very aggressive quarter cask that's been seasoned with Madeira. The oak is very aggressive and it could easily take over. And I could spend a whole hour talking about balance with whiskey and what we try and do, what we try and achieve, and how important it is for us. And that's really, really difficult when you don't have the casks to be able to try them, every single week if they need it. And we can absolutely catch that whiskey at the right time, which is, it's hard work going through the casks every week and trying them and trying to decide if it's on the right path and when's the right time to bottle. But someone's got to do it.
Yeah.
Genuinely, like when you know you've caught that whiskey at its peak, and because you have it there, and you get that, you capture that moment that can't be repeated, and you bottle that, and you send it out there, and people give you feedback and enjoy it. So yeah, it's little things like that. It's like little babies. You made that. That's our little creation. But don't get me wrong, I love them as much as the bourbon casks, the Ben Rinnes that we bottled from the current release as well. Again, as we were talking about at the start, not so sexy on paper, just a 10-year-old or 11-year-old space cider from a bourbon cask, whatever. But this Ben Rinnes was like, the first note I got just took me right back to my childhood, and the neon blue ice cream, the bubblegum flavour ice cream. Your lips and tongue are blue for about 2 weeks after it. That real sort of tutti frutti note that I got from that I just fell in love with that. So probably somewhere between those two, for different reasons, of course. And it always kind of makes me think of a point as well about the difference in those two. We can take the credit or the blame for the cask choice and the maturation of the tea and unique, but we didn't touch the Ben Rinnes. We owned it for more than half of its life, so at least 6 years. And never re-racked it, never wanted to re-rack it. But I suppose that decision, that choice, is just as important as moving a tea and unique into a Madeira quarter cask. We chose to leave that because we couldn't have improved it. We would have made that inferior by putting it into sherry or rum or Madeira, port, whatever it may be. The choice to leave that was the right choice. But then when do you bottle it? One, again, I was really keeping an eye on it because I think it was in our warehouse for at least 3 years. And I was thinking we could just over 200 bottles out of that. I'm sure it should have been about 250, but I kept going back to check it every single week, just to make sure that the oak didn't take over, because it was really close. That tutti frutti thing was building, and I knew that at some point it was just going to flip over and turn into pencil case. You know what I mean? The difference between the tropical fruit and then going really woody, and it could happen so quickly. But I think we nailed it. So I'm really proud of that one as well. Proud of the thought of doing nothing other than timing, just getting that timing right. So
yeah.
So I know that was you said really quick question. Or was it
I said easy one. I think.
There's no quick answer. So you ask me about whiskies that I like and favourite whiskies and things that I've been part of, then you're not getting a short answer.
100%. And I remember you had one of our first outruns that we got from Lady Glen. I'm not sure. You must have been part of the team at the time. There was a Glengarry, and it was on the tasting notes, it was pencil shavings. And it was just such a good dram. And you think, if you put pencil shavings, going back to your Parmesan cheese, it's like somebody who didn't know whiskey was reading that. They're like, what the hell do they mean by pencil shavings? Who eats pencils? I mean, every 5-year-old eats pencils.
That's true.
Every 12-year-old at Academy starts eating pencils. So that's within living memory, isn't it? You'd remember that.
No, absolutely. But I think you put a tasting note like that in a different context. So for me, the pencil shavings was not the taste; it was the nose. It reminded me of like workshop or being at school and the smell of your pencil case. That kind of nostalgia had a little bit of that. I can't speak for eating pencil shavings, to be honest, but I'll take your word for it. Did it taste like that? Then great, we've nailed the tasting note.
Bob has just commented. He's been on the ball. He says it's 2 hours for the first Glengarry mentioned, which is, it must be
cheers
a record.
To everyone. It must be. And do you know what? It just proves it's not me that says it. It's like everyone's like, well, it's always you that mentions it, but it's never me. So cheers to everyone playing the Glengarry game.
We did have a wee flurry of Ardmore the kind of satay you, I think.
I didn't mention Ardmore either. I'm an innocent bystander. Like, people just need to talk about it because it's such good whiskey. So I'm just here for it. Talk away, guys.
I was going to say something. I can't remember what it was off the back of, but it's gone. We've moved on from it, I think, and it was round about the Stephen Gibson asking about your favourite one of the current outrun, but I can't remember what I was going to say. So the moment is now.
Well, you're not going to shamefully plug your newest releases though before you mentioned your. You can do it. You've been on for 2 hours. You've removed your bra. You can shamelessly plug your new release.
You can relax. Is that not the best part of an evening? Is when you can take your bra off and relax.
100%. So just wait until this chat's ended. It's going to get flung right across the room.
Again, guys, renew membership. That was.
Yeah, the premium membership for that one. Anyway, back to what your favorite release is.
To be fair, I had this thing on for like half an hour and I was desperate to get it off. So that's, Anyway,
yeah,
guy problems.
I know, right? Amen to that, sister.
Yeah,
what's your new? Yeah, I know, right? Horrific. Back to whiskey, though. You were going to shamelessly plug your new releases.
Yeah. All modesty, of course. I cannot get that Ben Nevis out of my head from today. I think again part of the job as well is that journey in collecting that cask. But it's something really special, something as old as that. These days, it's not easy to get. Big fan of the distillery as well, so it's a no-brainer for me. And 100% agree with anyone who is a bit of a kind of love affair with Ben Nevis from that era, because it really is magic. It really is special. There's something about it, whether it's deliberate or not, whether they've changed the way they produced the spirit, or it was just probably more inconsistent back in the 90s. I think, well, a distillery like Ben Nevis is so, it's like a heartbreaking time even today, but I'm pretty sure even today that they've kind of reined in the discrepancies and the inconsistencies that would sometimes make for a wonderful cask. But yeah, this is really special. Mentioned before, we've got a Pulteney coming out as well, which I say is more of a kind of tick in a box. It was wonderful to get that cask. Just a refill barrel, so nice and fresh, loads of the kind of maritime character to it as well. Which would, again, the choice not to re-rack that was to capture that, to maintain that, because it's not the lightest distillate, but this whiskey, for whatever reason, is quite a little delicate number. So I don't think it would have taken well to anything quite intense in terms of finishing. So yeah, that one's pretty good as well. What else have we got? Just while I've got it here, this is a Macduff, which I just love the name. And Macduff's great, but this one, so you'll see it. I don't know if you can see, like 53 bottles of this. It's backwards for you as it is for me. So as a tiny little small company, that was from quarter one. Is that the PX? That's
a PX. Yeah, 15-year-old.
Yeah. So we're sort of breaking a rule here, because one of the rules that we set out to do, or Gregor already had, and we're trying to maintain that now, is we try not to bottle whiskey from the same distillery within the same calendar year. But sometimes we break the rules for very good reasons. This Macduff is a good example of that, where having our own bottling hall and our own warehouse gives us the opportunity to take these little parcels that some suppliers and brokers are wanting to get rid of. It might have been a cask that they bottled for a private client and they only wanted a specific number of bottles, 200, 250, and that was it. And sometimes you end up with a few litres swishing about in the cask at the bottom, which you can probably imagine is a bit of a nightmare for most people. But we say, yeah, we'll take that. We'll do something with that. And more often than not, 99% of the time, you get a better whiskey from this little drop just swishing about in this cask. So this is 16 years old, but only 53 bottles come out of an American oak Oloroso hogshead. This thing is just spectacular, fruity. It's got the kind of menthol notes of a much older whiskey, kind of lovely spice character as well. Unique things that you get from that little bit of liquid swishing about for, we don't know how many years, but certainly at least a few anyway, enough to make a difference.
Yeah.
And so we always label these ones with the Myosotis, like the forget-me-not flower, because we kind of rescued that from obscurity. So we're breaking the rules for good reason. 2 McDuffs and 2 outruns. So sorry, not sorry. Simple as that. But yeah, really, really excited about that. I'm going to.
McDuff it's one of the I really enjoy McDuff. I think they do even the core range. You know, your Devon. I've got an empty bottle here. I think they're just really nice, kind of sweet fruits, really easy drinking.
Yeah.
So it's a great spirit. And I'm always keen to get independent bottling versions of it. So I'm sure it's going to be a banger. There's a reason why of the samples you sent me, this one is empty, because it was banging. The 15-year-old PX was absolutely fantastic.
That was a while. That was an interesting one. It took a while to get there. You know, considering 18 months or so in first fill PX, it's not particularly dark. It's not particularly stewed that you would expect from a first fill PX, but it just matured beautifully. You know, it gave the sweetness, but without taking away it's not even a real sweetness. It's just a little sweet note on top of what was already there. And it's as disappointing as it is when you spend 400 plus quid on a empty PX cask that you want, come with bells and whistles, but it gets there. It gets the effect on it, and again, it's all about timing. We could have waited until it did turn the colour of Guinness, but we would have had a lesser whiskey for it. Now we have something that's subtle, and for many people out there who don't particularly like a PX cask because it does normally come, with the whole fruitcake inside the bottle with it. It's a nice change.
Yeah. No, it's one that I really enjoy. I remember what I was going to comment on, and you kind of said it tongue in cheek about how hard a job it is sampling casks and thinking, it's not quite ready, or this one's ready, or what can we do with this one and tough job. Somebody's got to do it, but it is, and you have to be really subjective sometimes, don't you? That's not ready, or letting that heart rule the head is such an easy thing to fall into, where you have to make tough choices and say, no, actually, no matter how much I love being in it, that cask isn't ready out. We can't bottle it yet. And you guys, your reputation lies on what goes into a bottle, so you have to probably make some cutthroat. I've gone through a little bit. So we have our own spirit brand, Foghouse. We've only ever launched one whiskey. We've got another one in the market coming up, and it's been such a bugger to get ready. We bought it from Little Brown Dog, and it was decent spirit to start with, but we've played about with it and probably overplayed, and then we've had to go back to basics. And thankfully now, I was in the cat off screen last week. It's absolutely banging. I can't wait to get it in a bottle. But it was 10 years old when we bought it, and it's now 13 years old just because we've had to tinker it and do stuff with it. So it must be frustrating sometimes when you think this is good, but what will make it better? And you maybe try something and it's like, oh shit, there's a step back. What else can we do? But I guess that comes from experience. I've got one cask. You guys are working with dozens, if not hundreds. Where does that level of experience come in over everything? I guess that there's no tried and tested system for that, is there? It's just
you nailed it way back when you said about interpretation, and that's it. It's our call. There's 4 of us it's our call, you know, and we've got to kind of decide on that and stand by it. And you know, decisions like the Ben Rinnis that I was talking about, you know, that I didn't want to lose that kind of tutti frutti, but that might have been someone else's the worst idea of that kind of whiskey. They wanted that, but yeah. So yeah, mistakes have been made, and you do learn from them. The smart arse in the room always says, but how did you know that it wasn't going to get better if you left it a bit longer? You know, you can't see into the future. So of course not, but we've got a bit of experience to say that, well, the last time we let that cask mature at that length of time, this happened. But an even simpler way of looking at it is, you know where the whiskey was here before you re-racked it, and now it's here. So if you leave it the time, then it's going to be here. So it doesn't take much to really kind of build the picture. But yeah, I think it also make me think of a question that Kat asked before as well about, you know, like, what do you do if, I suppose Mark's question as well, Mark's point last week or the week before about, you know, keep going back to a cask and it's still shit. We do get casks in every now and then, and we're like, well, can we do anything with this? What can we do? You know, and there's two real answers to it. There's two answers to it. One's real, one's for the public, you know. There is such a thing as a cask that you can taste and know that there's no chance, nothing you can do to that, and you can sell it back onto the market. But we will always try something, you know, What do we think that this whiskey is going to improve with? PX, Oloroso, just time, whatever it may be, and it doesn't always work. But you know, if we just sold that cask on back onto the market, one day we might go, well, what if? We never know because we didn't try it. So, you know, it is possible to mess about with it and for it not to work. But yeah, ultimately it comes down to experience. You know, things we've tried and tested before, even to the extent of purchasing casks, we don't get samples before we buy 9 times out of 10. So we're buying on a kind of educated guess and based on experience. That distillery from that age, from at that price before, worked out pretty good. So it's on offer again. Let's get it again. You know, it's quite as simple as that. But always trying to use our imagination with the casks as well. You know, looking at a tea and unique that we bottled from. Talking about cask types that we get a slap on the wrist from. We bottled a tea and unique from an aquavit cask last year, and that didn't go down well with the Scotch Whisky Association. But you know, we tried that. We thought, well, it worked. It really did work, by the way. But we wouldn't do it again because you know we've tried tea and unique and an aquavit cask, but we might revisit that in 6 or 7 years or something like that. So,
and did you call that whiskey? Did you call that Scotch whisky? And
so we did. We again, forgiveness was better than asking permission, and same as the Glen Murray example with the cider casks. It was such a small batch that they weren't going to ask you to recall it and pour it down the drain. It was just a slap on the wrist. Don't do that again.
Yeah.
But I say that like that, but there was genuine innocence from our side on that. It didn't even register. I saw that we had the cask, brought it into the warehouse. Thought it was really interesting. I've never really seen that before. I did a bit of Googling. I'd only seen some Irish whiskies bottled from aquavit casks. So immediately marketing was like, yeah, get that in. That'll be really cool. We can say one of the first to do it. As I say, we brought it in, tasted the whiskey. It was really, really good. Really good. Like, really fruity, but it had this amazing sort of fennelly menthol note to the background as well, which tied in really well with the aquavit. So it's ticked all the boxes. Everything was ticked. So yeah, get this in the bottle right now, put it out there, put it onto the lists, sent it out to our distributors and our customers. Orders started coming in. But then I thought to myself, why is it that when I Googled that a few weeks ago, I didn't find any Scotch whiskies with aquavit casks?
Why are we the first people to do that?
Yeah, I mean, so my initial was like, wow, this is great. You know, we could be the first pioneers. What a great place to be. So I posed that question to Gregor, and he went, well, I don't know. Let me send a wee email to my contact at the Scotch Whisky Association. So he did that, and then 2 days later, I come into the office, and he was like, you know that question you wanted to know about the tea and unique and the aquavit cask? I was like, yeah. What did they say? They said no. So, right. What should we do? What should we do? But yeah, it was a case of just, especially being a single cask and 230 bottles or something, just don't do that again.
Yeah.
But we then, did try to justify it. We did try to say, well, you taste that. You taste this whiskey, and it's everything about it is Scotch whiskey. Yes, it's unusual. It's a cask type that has not been used before, but it's not detracting away from Scotch whiskey. It's just adding an element that I've not tasted before in a Scotch whiskey, but it was still Scotch whiskey. It still had gin and neak all over it. But no matter what we presented the case wise, it just they were not having it. But the reason is because I think within certain countries anyway, certain types of aquavit, you can add flavours after fermentation, which is the area that they struggled with. So however, the producer that this cask came from was a Norwegian producer of aquavit, and they're very prim and proper with their aquavit production. It is just spirit made from grain and matured very, very well in very good casks compared to some of the Swedish aquavits and the Danish ones, which are alcopops basically. So I can see why they would have a little bit of caution around that.
Sure.
But
yeah. I guess it's more about the they look at spirits and industries that have the same kind of level of authority, not authority, guidance as whiskey itself, isn't it? It's very traditional. It needs to be natural and in that, and if you can't prove that, then they just say no.
Yeah. And the few times that I've brought up the Scotch Whisky Association this evening is not having a go at all. I think we're proud members, and I think they could do a little bit more for innovation. That's the only criticism, but ultimately it's all with the best intentions, of keeping Scotch. Yeah. All those questions over the years, like with the whole English single malt things like that, that they're there so that if anything like that happens, anything tries to take away what we've built, I say we, not me, but the industry in general over the hundreds of years of creating and perfecting this alchemy to create this product is there when we need it, and they are there for us. So no issue with that.
Yeah, no, I do think so. Like, something can only be protected if there's something there protecting it. It's like we kind of need it, don't we? It's a self-filling kind of system, really. I see Japan's just all gone official with its own kind of stamp of approval for Japanese whiskey now as well. So yeah, everybody's jumping on the bandwagon. Yeah,
well, I mean, they've got a legacy as well. Hundreds of, at least 100 years anyway, 120 years, something like that. So. Even if
we have people coming at the shop who think that Japanese whiskey's relatively new. It's only been around since kind of the turn of the century. You're like, well, it's actually it's at least 100 years old. If not, the early 1900s. It's been on the go. So yeah, they know a thing or two. But even for guys like that, it's good that we're the pinnacle. We're the target, in Scotland for an industry that's been around over 100 years is still looking to us as the kind of that's what I'm looking for. Yeah, just that peak that's the target they want to hit to match or maybe not match, but be as good as. But yeah, there is that kind of wee worry that distillery industries like Swedish whiskey, Norwegian whiskey, Tasmanian, wherever, they've got a little bit more leeway on that innovation. They're allowed to use different casks. They're able to start from scratch and set up their own rules.
But that is the one thing. That is the one thing that would hold it back. And to me, it kind of ties in with. I suppose I felt kind of bad after that last week of commenting saying there's too many new distilleries, but that's where I have the concern, is that there is so many new distilleries producing this very, very clean spirit, and I was going to say wishy-washy, but that's not right. But you know what I mean? It's so good that it's it doesn't have the quirks, and therefore you've got this well-made but generic. And I'm not naming anyone, but certainly welcome anyone who's gone back to traditions and trying to make a quirky spirit, because that's the one thing we have for sure is actually, it's almost kind of counter towards innovation, but that tradition, go back to tradition to create something that's not there just now. The product that we have available to us just now,
like direct firing, floor malting,
all
230-year history.
all these innovations, I mean, but that's
go on, man.
Oh, I wasn't even talking about us, but yeah, now you brought it up. When are Lady of the Glen releasing a Glengarry then? I mean, I feel
that's
like
a very good question, and one that I have set an agenda to fix, to correct, to put right, and I've took that to Gregor, the man with the money, the man who can make that decision. And what did you think he said when I said that? I said, do we ever get offered any Glengarry? Can we bottle some Glengarry? What do you think he said to me?
I don't know, because let's just assume that I'm not allowed to give opinions about anything like that. So like, you tell me what he said.
His exact words in his very East Coast accent was, what do you want to do that for?
Do you know what? I think I've lost internet connection. Like, Lady of the Glen, what? Who?
I was going to say, I bet he told you something less polite than that, but...
Right, bring him up. Bring him to the distillery. I'm going to show him the time of his life. He's going to see everything. He is going to make barley angels. He is going to get directly fired. Like... He's going to have the best new make spirit coming out of his nose. He's going to have the best time. Bring him up. I will convert him. I can convert anybody to Glengarry. I've got ways.
You're on. You're absolutely on. I was going to say I could do a decent job of convincing him, but after that, no.
That's what we call over-pitching, Cap.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Well,
he's going to take you word for word and want to see everything, So,
the time of his life, seeing everything. New make out his nose. Mark Watt's now watching, so he's going to be wanting to jump in on that.
Come on over, guys. Come on over. We'll make it of it. Bring your underwear. I'm glad that nobody that I work with watches all the way to 2.5 hours, because probably shouldn't be allowed to make those offers. But yeah, we'll get you all converted. 100%.
Oh man. Well, I think that's a good time. The time of your life. Well, you can't get a better offer than that. Let's end on a high. It's been an
show you the time of your life. Yep.
And with that, we're going to go to the off live green room. That's going to show you everything. But no, it's been a great chat. What an insight into
You've eaten half of them.
You've only got one pap left, Paul.
I need to save some for the weekend.
Well, there you go. Yeah, big plans.
Indeed.
It's been so much fun. I think we've covered quite a lot tonight. Some things that needed covered, other things maybe not so much. But it's been so much fun. Thanks for coming along, giving up your Thursday night to chat to us and the guys at home. And as always, to the guys at home, thank you for, especially the ones who've stuck with us for 2.5 hours. It's always a pleasure to hopefully entertain you guys, give you some insights into what goes on in the whiskey world. Thank you for your questions, your comments. It's always appreciated. So, thank you very much. We will see you all again very soon, I'm sure.
Cheers.
Cheers.